very good morning. Welcome to Shop on TV. I'm Hayley Green.
And I'm Sean Crawley.
And together we've got a show that I think you'll be really grateful that you switched on, because if you haven't written a will yet, did you know actually there is a will that's been written for you, and that's the government will, and it will not be what you want to happen. Even if you've told all of your family what you want to happen when you die, sadly, that is not what's going to happen unless you've got a proper will in place.
Yeah, your wishes have to be written down in a legally binding document, and we're working alongside Simpler Law this evening to bring you fantastic offers when it comes to writing a will, but also lasting powers of attorney as well.
I think, first of all, you think it's something that's going to be really expensive. I think we keep putting things off, and perhaps we're still in January. Have all your New Year's resolutions failed? Well, this is your opportunity, still in January, to get that New Year's resolution sorted. Because if this year you want to get things sorted, you want to put plans in place, you never know what's going to happen, what's around a corner. Writing a will, honestly, is your final gift to your family. And if you really know what you want to happen with your belongings, whether it's your house, whether it's your pets, whether it's the kids, by writing it down, it will happen. But sadly, if you don't, it won't. And this is your opportunity. And this is why we're doing this show just before the end of January, to allow you to get that New Year's resolution still in place.
But the prices we're going to show you are time-limited offers. They're valid until close of business on Friday. Let's show you the offers that we've got available, and then we'll show you how easy it is to get in touch. So we talked about a will first of all. The usual price on your will, the suggested retail price, is £209. Today it's less than £100. And Simpler Law are going to offer you 4 interest-free payments, just £24.75 on your first of 4 payments, and if you want to go for the will.
Probably spend more than that on coffee.
Yeah,
in a week,
yeah,
easily, don't you? And that's your will in place. I thought it'd be so expensive. It's so affordable at full price, but tonight, my goodness, you've got such savings. Lasting power of attorney, we'll go into more detail about that. That is something that is just as important as a will. Again, incredible savings there. Should be £349, £199 is your price, and that again can be split over 4 payments. £49.75 is the first of those 4 payments. And remember, all you're doing tonight is securing these deals, and you must do that before close of business on Friday.
However, the best deal of all is if you want to go for a will and lasting power of attorney. A usual price suggested of $558 down to $269 for our exclusive offers here at Shop on TV with Simpler Law. $67.25 if you want to use your first of 4 interest-free payments.
Now, the first 250 clients, and this is why it's really important to do this tonight, will get an amazing book, What My Family Should Know. This book's worth £25, and I always say, I think everybody, I did say from birth originally, but perhaps birth is a bit early, but from sort of teenage work, from when you start working from teenage years, and this is so important, it's invaluable. This gives you, your family every bit of knowledge that they need about you. And life's so different now. It's not just about utility bills, it's also about passwords for your tablets, your phones and things.
All the financial things like your life insurance, your utility bills and council tax, you can see there, your vehicle registration. But then, as Hayley was saying, digital accounts, your laptop, your tablet, your phone. So
much could be on your iPad, your laptop, and if something happened to you, people can't get onto that information. We had it with a family member, and if the grandchild hadn't have known the password, they would have never got the information they needed. But it's all in that book. Now, it will be the first 250 people. That's why it's a really good idea to do it tonight, and it's so easy. All you're doing is securing the deals tonight. You don't need to know the answer to any questions.
No, you don't need any documentation with you, so let's show you how easy it is to get in touch with us this evening. First of all, you can go direct to Simpler Law, simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV, and that'll take you directly to those exclusive offers that we've been talking about. Now, if you do want to call the call centre, the team are there. They're ready and waiting to take your call. 0333 600 2600.
And they are. They're there till 3 a.m. So and again, it's no big discussion. It's just saying you want to secure the deals. And perhaps if you secure the will tonight and then tomorrow you think, oh, I wish I'd done the lasting power of attorney too, I know they will sort that out and add it on for you, just securing the prices. And then, of course, the best way, I think, and it's what a lot of people do, perhaps you're sat at home, you don't really want to talk to anybody, and perhaps you don't really want to go onto the internet. If you just text will, your phone will be right by you. Text will to 66777. Honestly, I do all the competitions like that. It's a winning competition tonight, because you will have taken that first step to get that will sorted. And it's so important because honestly, we didn't realise, Sean and myself, we've been together 34 years. I've worked it out. I was never sure. It is 34 years we've been together. And if we hadn't have got our will in place, and we didn't realise this, I presumed, because obviously we've been together so long, if something happened to me, what's mine is Sean's. It would go to Sean. If something happened to Sean, what's Sean is mine. That would not have happened at all, even though we've been together for 34 years. And what you think is going to happen, honestly, hand on heart, it doesn't.
And we'll explain that as we go through the show, the path that it would take if you didn't have a will in place. We've got so much really interesting information for you. The other way that you can get in touch is go to our website, shopontv.co.uk, scroll down and you'll see our on-screen partners there. Just click on Simpler Law and it takes you directly through to those offers. Really simple, once again, fill in your details, just what you want to get down, what you're interested in.
It's a Hayley form, that.
Very straightforward.
Really easy. You know, I can fill all of that in without any questions. You know, your name, your phone number, your email, tick, 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 and you've secured that deal. You've taken that step. This is your New Year's resolution to get organised this year, and you've taken that step to do it. And
if you are registering this way or you're sending that text, remember the team will get back to you, but not until after 11 o'clock this morning.
Yeah,
later on today.
We get muddled whether we're night or day. We're into today now, aren't we? And today will be a good day if you get these deals secured. But remember, it's only up until not midnight, 5 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah.
However, do it right now because you know you'll forget. You know you'll forget, and then it'll be the weekend, and you'll think, oh, I've missed out on all those deals.
It's taking that first step, and that's the hardest thing to do with something like this. And we're not alone. Joining us from Simpler Law, two good friends and experts when it comes to this business. Ian and Charlotte join us. It's lovely to see you again.
And you. Nice to see you.
Look at those smiling faces. Good to see you, as I say. We're going to start straight away with what is a will and why does everyone need one?
Important? Yeah.
I think you summed it up perfectly. I love it when you say it's your last gift to your family, because that's exactly what it is. But you also mentioned there right at the top of the show that the reason we actually do these shows, we want to basically tell people that what they might believe isn't necessarily true, or what they hope is going to happen isn't necessarily true. We come across a lot of people who just assume, as in fairness you said that you two did. But sadly, if you don't make your own will, so it's your instructions, it's your document, it deals with you, with your family, for your estate, everything you've worked hard for. If you don't create that for yourself, then you actually get a default will. We call it the government will.
Yeah.
It's actually something called the rules of intestacy, and that is there for every adult in the UK. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realise, because why would you? I don't think people wake up on a Saturday morning and go, I wonder what happens when I pass away.
Exactly, yeah.
They just hope, as you both did, that, well, if I pass away, I want everything to go to my partner or my wife, or I want everything to go to my spouse, or I'd like it to pass down to my children. Whatever it is that you want to happen doesn't necessarily happen with the government will.
No.
And that's why it's so important to make your own will.
And the government will is actually so old. When you see it, honestly, it's quite frightening, because it's completely the opposite. I can't see the government will ever being right for anybody. And obviously, you've written so many wills. Have you ever written a will that's like the government will?
And Charlotte will be better placed to tell you that as part of the client care team, that we've never ever drafted a will that mirrors the government will, because A, that would obviously be pointless, because you might as well just stay with the government will. But you're quite right, it's actually 100 years old, that legislation, this year.
And it's just standard yes/no questions. We've got a sheet that we can show you on screen, because it is just yes/no questions. It's not the path that anybody really wants to go down.
It all starts with a question about the person that's passed away, and the question is their marital status.
Right.
And it's really straightforward. It's a yes or no question, as you quite rightly said. And the question is, are you married or in a civil partnership, or more to the point, were you married or in a civil partnership? And the answer is yes or no. And then there's a series of other questions depending on your bloodline in your family. Now, what's interesting is it's not unusual for us at all now to speak to a couple that might be on their second relationship, they might be on their second marriage, they may have children together, they may have children from previous relationships. And this is going to sound melodramatic, but I promise you it's not. It's unfortunate that set of rules there rips that family apart, because it doesn't take into account different bloodlines.
So what would happen then if you were, you know, as you see yourself as a family, but your second marriage, you've both got children from previous marriages, you're living as a family. What would happen if one of you died?
So there's a limit that can pass between spouses automatically, and let's assume you're under that limit, which is 322,000. Forgive the finger puppets; they're already there. But and forgive me, I don't mean to be patronising, but let's say that Mr. passed away first. Everything would then pass to Mrs.
Yeah.
When Mrs. passes away, under the rules of intestacy, everything will go to her children only. So if Mr. had children from a previous relationship, they're disinherited. And most people will tell you that's not what they wanted at all. They wanted to treat the children equally. But the rules of intestacy don't do that. And then sometimes we hear that, well, even if that did happen, it'll be okay because, you know, my son or my daughter would make sure their step-siblings taken care of. And sadly, there's no legal requirement for that to happen, and you can't be assured that will happen.
As soon as money comes into play, everything changes.
And that's a lot of pressure on that person, and you don't know what their partner or their husband or wife's going to say. So if you know what you want to happen, the reason we do these shows is we're saying, please phone 0333 600 2600 now, speak to a member of Charlotte's team. It could even be Charlotte that you end up speaking to, but give us your instructions. We'll give you advice along the way, but at the end of it, you'll have the will that's right for you and not a generic set of rules that was created 100 years ago that frankly doesn't fit anyone's circumstances.
You'd just be devastated, wouldn't you, if you were looking down on your family, and I bet it causes so much family heartbreak.
Definitely.
It's the single biggest reason for a breakdown in family relationships, because of course emotions are high, and then the family find out that what they might have suspected or known that their mom, their dad or whatever wanted to happen isn't actually going to happen.
Yeah. And we're talking about monetary things, but with Will, Charlotte, it's not just about money and property, is it? There's so much more you can do.
There's so much more you can do with it. Yeah, you can be specific by giving gifts. So it could be family heirlooms, it could be specific items that you want to leave. But a lot of people even forget that you can actually stipulate what age children inherit on there as well.
I've never
which is a really big one. Yeah, because legally children inherit at the age of 18. But we've all been 18 before.
Absolutely.
Do you want an 18-year-old to inherit your estate?
So you could break it down so that perhaps they get a bit at 18 or 20 or 21?
Yeah, we tend to find a lot of clients will even go between 21 and 23 usually.
Right.
Okay.
Just to give that extra few years where, you know, you've gone through maybe university or things like that. So that's a really important one. But actually, on the subject of children, is guardianship. Is a really, really important one for a will. So stipulating who's going to take care of your children should the worst happen. Because if you haven't stipulated that down, then you're essentially relying on the right person to step forward.
Yeah, of course.
But who is that person?
These are just some of the things that you can see on screen right now, of the things that you can do with your will. There's also the point that you might have family members who you don't want to inherit.
Exclusions, absolutely. I think a lot of people assume that a will is just where it's going. But yeah, if, you know, we do see family breakdowns, you might be estranged from a parent or a sibling, whoever that person might be. So you can actually stipulate that you don't want them to inherit. Again, it's just making sure what you want to happen happens.
And it's so important for everybody, isn't it? I always think that perhaps if you're watching at home and you think, well, actually, I'm just a single person, so it's not important to me. You know, I haven't got any children, I'm not in a relationship at the moment, so I don't need a will. But actually, and this story always sticks in my mind, because I think as a single person, you think it's not important. What does it matter, you know, what happens to my money? Tell me about the youngish man who died. Was he a surgeon or a doctor or something?
Yeah, he's a medical consultant. He was successful in his own right, and he was relatively young. He was only in his 40s. The story sticks with you because it stuck with me.
Yeah, it really
and obviously,
does.
you know, I'm in this profession, but it still even stuck with me, even though I knew where the story was going. And it's because it was told by his surviving mom and his brother.
Right.
And basically what happened is this young man had passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. We'll never know why he didn't make a will. We'll never know if it's because he didn't know that he got the rules of intestacy if he passed away without a will, or that, you know, he was young, so he'll do it later.
You just didn't get round to it,
no,
maybe. You don't know, do you?
The only time to do it is now, because otherwise life gets in the way and we never get to it. But effectively, the backstory was when this young gentleman was born, his dad left the family. So he left basically to his wife, so his wife became a single parent, if you like, and brought up two boys on her own. And their father was never heard from again. So no birthday cards, no contact, nothing. And then, of course, sadly, when he's passed away, he's not got a will, he's never been married, and he's got no children. So the rules of intestacy came into play because he didn't have a will, so he's got the government will. The first question is, are you married in a civil partnership, or were you? The answer was no. That takes you to the next question, which asks, do you have children? The answer was no. The next question then in the government will is, do you have parents? The answer, of course, was yes. and unfortunately his estate was split equally between both parents. So his mom had to track down
It
her
still makes my
ex-husband
hairs
who'd
go
walked
on.
out sort of the 40, 50 years previous to say, I know you've had nothing to do with our son's growing
So
up.
they had
but
to track him down, and then
he was entitled to half of the
Half
estate.
the
Legally,
estate.
he's entitled to half the estate. And most people, people will get angry at hearing that story and get annoyed, and they're right to, because anyone with a moral compass.
It's not right.
We can't say why that gentleman left the family. That was his choice, but he made a decision not to be part of it, and
Yeah.
yet. I think we could reasonably suspect that if we were able to ask that gentleman who passed away, would you want your dad who you never met to receive half of everything? I think we can reasonably guess that his answer would have been no. But under the rules of intestacy, that's what can happen. So money often ends up going where you don't want it to go, because it's not about you. That list that you saw on the screen earlier about making your own will, that's all about you.
Yeah.
It's you choose your executors, you choose what
Yes,
age your children,
yeah.
you choose guardianship, you choose, if there's people you don't want. You choose different shares if you want. Your will is your will. It's not a generic thing.
And
it's really important to get it in place.
it can be exactly what you want. That's the
That's
thing,
it.
isn't it?
And a lot of people, I think, and we've got friends who we must talk to you about.
Yes.
They're like,
Don't leave
we're
before we've talked to you about it.
It's just so complicated. They're like,
We went out with them the other night, and that was
we
it.
said, have you done your will yet? Because we're terrible. Now. And we're like,
We're preachers.
no, we haven't. And we were like, you've got to write your. It's so important, and they have got lots of reasons they should write a will, and they still haven't done it. And we said, well, we're working with you. We'll get you to get in touch with them. But yeah, they were like, well, it's really complicated.
What you always say.
Yeah, it's never going to be too complicated
And
for you.
when you say that,
You've dealt with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we have a client that comes to speak to us and says, oh, I think this is going to be really simple, that actually
That
worries
scares
us,
you
'cause
more.
Yeah, when a lot of clients that come to us and go, it's going to be really complicated, it tends not to be.
Right.
Brilliant.
It tends to be the opposite, but it doesn't matter. We're there to help you, and it's an advice service. We're there to give you the advice. Whether you take that advice or not is entirely up to you, but we will be able to help you in any scenario.
and when you secure the deals, you don't need to go to the office. You don't anything such
No.
as that. They don't come to you. You don't come to our houses.
This morning, you hit the nail on the head, Sean. This morning is arguably the hardest thing, is just taking that first step.
Yeah.
I always say, it sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's absolutely true, is no one ever regrets making a will. But you've got to take that first step. There's no one ever turned around, and Charlotte can testify to this, that at the end of the consultation, every client will say thank you and a version of I'm glad I did that. And that version of a glad I did that varies depending on what they found out during that consultation.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a real weight lifted that they didn't know they had. Or sometimes we'll point something out, they're like, oh my God, if I'd not done that.
Yeah.
And you know the nicest thing is it is actually so simple. I always
Yeah.
panic about things, especially things to do with law. It's going to be
Legal
really
things.
complicated. I'll ask a wrong question. It's very much like sitting down and having this conversation with members from Simpler Law. You don't even need to know the information. They'll talk the information from you, really. But please check out the deals. Don't go anywhere just yet, because we've got still got loads more. to
And we'll
talk
tell you
about.
how to get in touch in just a moment.
Hi, welcome to Shop on TV. I'm Hayley Green.
I'm Sean Crawley.
And together we've got a fabulous show tonight, a show that I think you'll be really pleased you've switched on. ITV already with us, STV just joined us, so it's great to have all of your company. It's all about a will, and have you written your will? And did you know, if you haven't written your will, that actually there is a will that falls into place, a government will, like we call it.
It's called the rules of intestacy. It falls into place if you haven't written your own will down.
It's not what
And
you
it's
want to happen.
Just a series of yes/no questions of where your property, where anything that you have goes to. So tonight could be the solution, a very affordable price for you to write down those wishes that you want finally.
Yeah, because sadly, even if you've told the whole family what you want to happen, they know. I've told my daughter, she knows exactly what I want to happen to everything. I don't want so-and-so to have that. I want them to have this. It's pointless, because once sadly you pass and you haven't got a legal will in place, it goes to that government will. And that government will, I truly, hand on heart, don't think is right for anybody. Wouldn't have been right for us because we're not married. Wouldn't be right for you if you're remarried with children from different families. You're a blended family. You'll be blown away. Do stay with us and learn how important it is. But please do realise tonight it's so affordable and it's so easy, because I thought it'd be so complicated and it's not.
And this is just the first step, securing the offers that Simpler Law, who are working alongside us on this show, to bring you these fantastic offers so that you can write your will, or you can write a lasting power of attorney, and we'll go deeper into that as we go through the show if you've not heard of it or you don't know what that means. The offers are spectacular, but they're only available up until close of business on Friday. That's why it's great to get in touch tonight. You don't even have to talk to anyone.
You forget, don't you? You put things off and then it'll be the weekend.
Just don't
and
get
you'll think,
round
I've missed
to
the
it, do
deal.
you?
It's gone back up to £209. It's £99 tonight. £99 split over 4 payments. £24.75. That's the first of your 4 payments to get that will written. So what you want to happen when you pass actually will happen. By law, it's been written down. It's so important, and tonight's so affordable. But you do, like Sean says, you need to secure these deals. Lasting power of attorney, we're going to go into a bit more detail about that, Sean.
Yeah, like we say, you might have heard of the term but not know exactly what it is. We'll talk you through that as we go through the show. We're here live through till 3 a.m. The lasting power of attorney suggested price is £349. It's less than £200 on our Shop on TV offer price, and with those 4 interest-free payments, it's just £49.75 on your first of 4 payments. But the best value of all is if you go for the will and the lasting power of attorney. That should be £558. It's down to £269, and with those 4 payments again, you've got £67.25 on your first of 4 payments interest-free.
And if you look at those payments, I mean, I bet for the will you spend more than that on coffee. I bet for the lasting power of attorney, think what you pay on takeaways. Honestly,
On those first payments,
it's so affordable.
Well, the will and the lasting power of attorney isn't even a tank of petrol for us, is it?
No, oh gosh, don't talk about petrol.
No.
Now, if you are the first 250 people, this is another reason to get in touch today. You don't need any details. All you need to know is that you want to write that will, you want that lasting power of attorney, you want to secure the deals. There's a free book for the first 250 people, What My Family Should Know. It's worth £25, and this is brilliant because you know when somebody does pass, you're hunting, aren't you, for all those secret places where all their information is, and sometimes you can't find it. I know my mum's got things all over the house. We'll never know where to find anything. But this book, and I say from teenage years, everybody should have this. Every bit of information that anybody would need is in there.
Well, things such as home security, that'll be your number for your alarm, things like your laptop, your iPad, your digital accounts, your social media accounts, so that everyone can access
Because if you haven't got the
everything.
password, perhaps there's really important emails on that iPad and you can't get on there. Or perhaps actually it's all those photographs you took last Christmas and they're all on Mum's iPad, they're all on Dad's iPad, but nobody can get on it. And we had that situation with a family member not that long ago, and they were like, we can't get on the iPad. And luckily, the little, and we're talking little, grandson heard, and he was like, I know the password.
I used to play on
'cause
that.
He used to play on it. But
was just long.
had they not had that password, they wouldn't have been able to find any of that information. That book is so amazing. So you've got that if you're the first 250 people. To get in touch is so easy. You don't need any information tonight. You just want to write that will. It's that first step. This is your New Year's resolution. We failed, haven't we, already? We're the end of January.
Yeah.
But actually, we're still at the end of January. You've got the opportunity to still get this, getting organised this year sorted. You can go to simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV. That'll take you to our deals. And of course, you can secure, just say, I want to secure my deal on the website. Or you can ring.
Yeah, the team are in the call centre right through till 3 a.m. And again, you don't need any documentation, you don't need anything with you. You're just getting in touch to secure these offers that we're talking about this evening. 0333 600 2600, and it is as simple as that. You just register tonight and then the team will arrange everything ongoing.
That's it, when it's suitable for you. The best thing, and I think the best way, is texting. You text Will 66777. I bet your phone's right by you, and it's so easy to do that. I do all the competitions like that because you're like, oh, that I've done it. It's done and dusted. I haven't had to speak to anybody. I've done it. And what you've done is, I think you've entered the best competition. It's not a competition, but what you've actually done is you've taken that first step just by texting Will. You've secured all the deals. Even if you decide a bit later on, you say, I want to do the will, and actually I'll do the lasting power of attorney as well. I know they will, as once you've secured the deals, those deals are there for you.
The other way, if you want to go through our website, if you're used to using our website, shopontv.co.uk, just scroll down the page until you come to the partners that we work alongside. Simpler Law right in the middle there, and then it'll bring the offers up and a really simple form. Now, if you do text or you fill in this form, the team will get back to you later today, which is after 11 a.m. We always get confused, don't we?
Yeah,
today, tomorrow.
morning,
It's actually today.
It is, because of course we're into today already, and the nice thing is then you can discuss when it's the right time for you to actually sit down and chat, and it is a sit down and chat. We worked with Simpler Law, well, not worked, we actually did my mum's lasting power of attorney with Simpler Law many years ago, before we actually worked alongside them here on Shop on TV, and it was something that terrified me. I knew we needed to do it, but I think I'm just going to be daft. I'm going to ask the wrong questions. We're not going to know the answers. It's a sit down and a chat, honestly. You don't need to, it's not a test at all. You don't need to know anything.
You can't get anything wrong.
They actually talk all the information out of you. It's amazing. And they actually become friends as well.
Yeah, it was, for you and your mum who were really nervous about things like that, it was just a real easy hand-holding process. Speaking of friends, two of them join us tonight from Simpler Law. Ian and Charlotte are with us once again. Lovely to see you both again, as you say. The shows have been so busy, but let's start again just with the basics. Wills, why does everyone need a will?
I think what's not widely known is that, and you both mentioned this, is that if you don't make your own will, then one is given to you, or more to the point, it's given to your family after you've passed away. There's something called the Rules of Intestacy, which was put into legislation in 1925. So obviously society's changed quite a lot since that period. But basically, if you don't take time out of your life to make your own will and set out what you want to happen to what you've worked hard for and for your family, you are given this Rules of Intestacy. We call it the government will. Now, it's generic and it's default, and that's the position that we're in the UK effectively. And as I said, I don't think people are fully aware of that.
I mean, why would we know, really? We didn't realise. We've been together 34 years and just presumed, which is completely wrong, but we've been together 34 years. Our family know what's mine is Sean's, what Sean's is mine. So obviously it'd go to each other. But it wouldn't, because this government will comes in.
Yeah, I think what I've learned over the last quarter century of sort of dealing in this profession is when people say, oh, well, I assume this would happen or I assume that would happen, actually what they're really saying to me is, I hope this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the reason we do these shows is we say you don't want hope, because hope won't work. You actually want a valid will, because that will work and that'll be your document, and what you want to happen will then happen. But unfortunately, you're quite right, we don't wake up on a Saturday morning and go on a search engine and go, what happens when I die? But this government will, by definition, it doesn't take into account anything personal. So there's only 4 of us in the studio this morning, but all of our situations are different, and yet we'd all get exactly the same will and the same set of questions that would determine where our state goes. You extrapolate that out over the millions of people in the UK, and it genuinely doesn't work.
And this was written, and you're going to see on your screen, it's yes, no questions, really, over 100 years ago. And I still think back 100 years ago, it still wouldn't have been right. But now our lives are so different. We're on second marriages. We've got children from different partners.
Lots of people don't get married.
True.
Yeah.
And so this would be, have you ever written a will like this?
No, I mean, Charlotte will tell you. Charlotte obviously oversees our client care team. And I suppose it's common sense to say if we've never written a will like the government will, otherwise you wouldn't need to do a will. But the fact of the matter is, when you make a will, it's all about you. It's unique. That will is only for you. The Rules of Intestacy isn't unique. It's the same set of questions.
It's
for
literally
everybody.
yes, no, isn't it? Yes, no.
And frankly, it doesn't care about you or your family. It doesn't care about your wishes. You know, you might have a family heirloom that you want that to carry on passing down to your daughter or to your son. Well, then you've got to hope that someone does the right thing with that heirloom, because there's nothing legally binding to say that it's going to pass on. And the real key for me, it's all about control. Like, if you've worked hard for everything that you've got and you know what you want to happen if you're not here, is if you document that, you've taken control of what happens when you're no longer here. If you don't make your own will, you're completely leaving it to chance, and unfortunately the chances are quite clear that what you want to happen won't, because the government will, by definition, is just a default position, and as I said, doesn't care about you. So the reason we do these shows, if you're sat listening to me waffle right now, the planets might have aligned, and the hardest thing about making your will is phoning a colleague. It's just phoning 0333 600 2600, or I think you're quite right, Hayley. I'm sure that if you're listening to me now, you've probably got your phone next to you. So just text the word will to 66777. We will call you back later today. But that is honestly the hardest thing about making a will, is just deciding you're going to do it. And then it'll be Charlotte or a member of her team that actually guides you through all of that.
And you do, it's like a hand-holding service. It's lovely, actually. And when you see there's so many 5-star reviews, do your own research. But the lovely thing is, those 5-star reviews don't particularly mention Simpler Law. They'll mention you, Charlotte, or they'll mention the individual team member.
I'm not sure how many mention.
Oh, lots. There's lots for
Lots
Charlotte.
of them.
I can't reach him to kick him tonight.
It's all right, I'll do it after. But no, we pride ourselves on that, because it is really important. You know, you're going through someone's wishes, and like you've said, Hayley, earlier on, which I really liked, you've got all of the answers. You don't need to bring anything to us. We will ask those questions. We've got the questions to ask you. You've got the answers. It will all work itself out. It's just having that conversation. It's just a conversation in the comfort of your own home. Have a cup of tea, sit in bed if you like, on the phone, at the time that's right for you, and we'll go at your own pace. So there's no rush. We have clients that come and don't have the answer straight away and want to have that conversation. Some will come and know it all. There's no right.
And initially, when they first make contact of you as right now, they don't need anything with them, do they?
You don't need anything. You just need the will to want to make a will.
Great.
Just make the right make the choice today to do something, as you've said, do something good today, and take that first step. Once you've done that, we will lead you through the whole process.
It's brilliant. It's not daunting at all. That's the great thing about it. And you might think with a will, it's just about money. I haven't got enough to write a will. But with a will, you can do so much, can't you?
Sometimes you forget what you have got. And of course, you've got the house you live in, you've got the car that you drive around. But actually, when you write a will, Charlotte, there is so much more that you can put into a will.
So much more, absolutely. So Ian said previously, you can see on there about leaving gifts. So could be family heirlooms, could be a particular item you want to leave to someone specific. But one that's really important in there is what age is your grandchildren inherit.
I'd never even thought about that.
Yeah, legally the age of that is 18. But a lot of clients that I and colleagues speak to usually go between 21 and 23.
Right.
You can go older than that as well if you choose to, but again, this is all about it being your choice.
Well, we know what we were like at 18, and it's a good age to be given a
No,
great
exactly.
deal,
But again, on there you can see choose your own executors.
Now, what does that mean for anyone who doesn't know what that means?
So essentially, you're choosing who you want to oversee your will and actually distribute everything that you've got on there and oversee your wishes. With the rules of intestacy, that also isn't put in there either. So automatically you haven't got the executors you choose. So you've got a choice. A lot of clients might want their own family members, so it could be children, it could be friends. We also offer services where we can be a professional executor for you if you'd rather take that strain away from your family. But again, this is all about you having that choice. And that, again, it's just putting it into a document and knowing that is going to happen, whether you choose your own, whether you have a professional. But with the rules of intestacy, again, you're relying on the right person, or someone's automatically going to be nominated for that role. But if it is children, they might have full-time jobs, they might not have the time to do this. So again, it's just you overseeing and making sure that
taking the pressure off, isn't it?
People forget the grief factor as well.
Absolutely.
But we'll talk you through that, and I think the key thing that Charlotte said there, if you listen carefully to what Charlotte's saying, she's saying you choose, you choose. You choose. With a government will, you don't choose anything, and that's the lack of control you have, and that honestly is why we've done these shows now for 13 years.
Gosh, is it really?
Yeah, but you know, again, because we've said you don't actually wake up, dear, and
think about
search what happens when I die. We don't think about it, but what we're encouraging you to do this morning is think about it. This will take half an hour out of your life. It'll be the best half an hour that you spend.
And it's so affordable.
It all starts with a text or a phone call this morning. And if you put it off, I promise you what will happen is tomorrow morning you'll wake up and life will get in the way again. And you won't do it, and you'll do it maybe next time you see us, which is great. But honestly, the only time you can really act is now. And that's probably the hardest thing about this process, is actually making that initial phone call. Because once you've spoken to Charlotte or one of her colleagues, honestly, at the end of it, every single client says, I'm glad I've done that.
Yeah.
Because my cheesy line, but it's 100% correct, is no one ever regrets putting a will
No,
in
of
place.
course.
No.
But sadly, your family might regret that you didn't, because, you know, there are so many horror stories out there where someone passing away without putting the plans in place, it can be devastating.
Everything goes wrong. Yeah.
At the worst possible time as well. So I'm not suggesting for 1 second that making a will diminishes the bereavement and somehow makes it better. But what we can promise you is that if the person who passed away had a will, that's not going to make it worse because they've planned. So we know who's going to deal with the will. We know that what they want to happen is now going to happen. But it's heartbreaking to tell someone who's already bereaved and devastated because they've lost a loved one that actually what they thought or understood was going to happen now isn't. Because the rules of intensity actually say no.
It's taken out of their control, isn't it?
It's awful. And it's all avoidable.
Yeah. It really
Because
is.
sadly, if you haven't written a will, there is a government will that just falls into place,
Yeah.
and it's not what you would want to happen. Honestly, the only way to make sure what is in your heart, there's no point, you know, leaving it. Can you imagine? And I don't know what happens when we die, but if you're looking down and all your family are falling out because they know you didn't want so and so to have that, and they know exactly what you want. You told them what you wanted, but none of that was happening because you hadn't written a will. That government will came into place, and then it's just what the government will allows to happen. It's out of everybody's hands.
That's
You'd
legally
be devastated.
binding.
It's your last gift to your family, and you're seeing the price on the screen.
And to
It's
yourself.
so affordable. Peace of mind for yourself, definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely to yourself. Now, it's not just about wills we're going to be talking, and we'll go into more detail as we go through the show. But like we said, get in touch, secure these offers. We're going to talk about lasting power of attorney because you might have heard of the term, but you might not know what it is, Charlotte. And lasting power of attorney is that kind of thing, isn't it? Oh, I've heard that term bandied around.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you know what a will is because inevitably a will is going to need to be used. But powers of attorney, these are a separate document. So these are documents you put in place whilst you've got capacity and can make your own decisions that nominate who you trust to make your decisions for you if you're no longer able to.
So if you became very poorly, or perhaps you're in an accident.
An accident, yeah, anything where you're unable to make decisions
Dementia,
for yourself.
or
Yeah,
things like
dementia's a really big one. I think a lot of people associate powers of attorney with old age because you tend to find dementia or ill health. But it could be, like you said, an accident. It could even be at a younger age. Once you've got these documents in place, they last you for life at that point. So you always use this term, a what-if document, which I really like because you like to think you're never, ever going to need it, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, then great. But you've always got it there, should the worst happen, that those people can step forward and act for you.
And there are two lasting power of attorneys, and this is why we came to you. And we came to you originally for the financial side of things. Can you talk us through that? Because I presumed, and I know lots of you will be the same at home, you know, I look after mum now, so if anything happened to mum and she couldn't sort things out herself, that obviously everyone knows I look after
in.
I'll step in and do it. But then logically, I can't go into a bank now and sort anything out unless I've got mum with me or
Exactly
if mum talks to them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, especially spouses, assume, it's that assumption again, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, you know, if they haven't got capacity, well, I'll just be able to go and handle that for them, absolutely. But as you rightly say, if you go into the bank, the first thing they're going to say is, are you the account holder? You've got that data protection, and you're not going to be able to get through that.
No.
If someone's lost their capacity, they're even more vulnerable.
Of course they
So if
are.
anything, the gates are higher, you're not going to be able to do anything. So with the financial power of attorney, it allows you to nominate, again, who you choose. So it can be multiple people, it could just be one if you'd prefer. But those people can access your bank, or you can see on the screen there, they can access your bank accounts, they can pay your bills, they can claim pensions, they can manage property. So it could be that you've got rental properties, even your own property that you've got, they can sell that if they need to, all in the best interest of yourself, but they have the power to be able to manage that all for you because these things don't just stop because you've lost your capacity.
No,
You
you've still
keep
got bills to pay.
Yeah,
Life
pensions
goes
can
on,
still be
doesn't
coming
it? Yeah.
benefits, things that you know you might not even think about. These things still need to keep running.
And you can get someone that you trust to do that.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. Again, it's your choice. These documents are about you putting your wishes down and knowing that that's a guarantee to happen. So a lot of clients might choose children. You could even choose a friend. It could be a parent if you choose. Again, it's the
completely up to
choice.
you, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're
It's
back
about
to choice.
you.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is making a will, drafting lasting powers of attorney, that's really selfless.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to get something out of the lasting power of attorney, weirdly, because you have the peace of mind of knowing that the people that you trust would step into your shoes.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think what I've always found interesting over the years is we're always quite ready to protect some material things in our world, but we often forget about ourselves and we forget about our loved ones. And, you know, we speak to loads of people who, you know, they've paid boiler insurance their entire life. They'll insure the pets, and I get that. You know, they'll insure the pets, and we'll insure our phones, we'll insure lots of things. And let me be clear, a lasting power of attorney is not an insurance document, but it can be viewed like that because it is, you're quite right, I call it the what if. If you had a crystal ball and you could see that life had thrown you that curveball, because, you know, we know that life isn't fair. Someone's always thrown a curveball at some point, and it's human nature to think that it's going to be somebody else. But the person that's being hit by that curveball is the somebody else. If they then have these documents in place, as I've said before, it doesn't diminish what's happening.
No.
A will doesn't diminish a bereavement, and having a lasting power of attorney doesn't make someone being ill or in an accident any easier. I'll rephrase that. It doesn't make it easier, but what it doesn't make it worse. Because then you know that you can step into their shoes, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than dealing with something horrible and then finding all these barriers that naturally exist but all I want to do is... You hear people exacerbate it going,
you're trying to do good, aren't you?
What would happen, so if we didn't have a lasting power of attorney, what would you do to try and
get that
take
control?
that control? And
sadly, we have to advise this more often than we like. We get, it's not a nice phrase, we get the too late phone call. So we might get a call to the office that says, my dad's just been diagnosed with dementia, we've been asked about a lasting power of attorney, is there something we can do? And unfortunately, when it's too late, if you're not deemed to have mental capacity, you can't make it. So you can only do it today. So the question you're asking, in that situation, we have to say that the only route is for somebody to apply for what's called a deputyship order through something called the Court of Protection. Now, again, worryingly, that might not be the person that you would have chosen for yourself.
Right.
oh gosh.
If you've lost capacity...
So anyone could step up to do that?
Yeah.
So it could be a child you've fallen out with, or...
The Court of Protection is there designed to protect you as a vulnerable person, but of course they don't know that relationship or that dynamic.
Of course, yeah.
And for me, it always comes back to choice. Is my wife and I obviously have got lasting powers of attorney. We know the people that would step into our shoes if, God forbid, we ever found ourselves incapacitated. If you don't have a lasting power of attorney, it could be anyone that turns up. And even if it is the right person, the devastating thing then is it costs a small fortune to go through this process, and that's even if you try and do it yourself. But worse than that, it actually takes up to a year for the deputyship order to be granted at the moment.
Good grief.
So we've got costs here. You've got an application fee, which is £408,
That's right,
and you've got to find this money yourself, because obviously
initially,
the person's money's frozen, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah. So sometimes they'll ask for a hearing fee on top of the assessment fee. The supervision fee is an annual payment as well. So even if you're granted a deputyship order and you're given that power, effectively the court can sometimes put restrictions on you, so they might limit what you can spend at any given time. So whilst it's again a default position, even when you've got a deputyship order, it can be quite restrictive. I mean, there's a well-known snippet of a poor lady whose husband got knocked over and put in a coma for 3 years, and he managed all the money. And she was on a show explaining how difficult it was, because, and the thing that always stood with me, she said she cried when he passed away, and she cried when she was released from the Court of Protection.
Oh, God.
And it was just an awful story.
Heartbreaking.
And again, if that couple had a crystal ball, he would have definitely made a lasting power of attorney, knowing how difficult it was for his wife.
Of course.
So, as I said, I'm not saying dismiss your boiler or your pets or your phones, or
no, but
put things in perspective.
We insure the contents of our home. We insure all these material things that we think are important. And actually, generally, I don't want to get too deep, but none of that's important when your loved one's ill.
When you compare it with
what's
that.
important is being able to step in and look after them and make the right decisions.
And when you say it takes a year to get that sorted, haven't awfully a lot of people actually died before it's been sorted out?
And their energy and the time's being focused on
rather than
looking after them. And that's just the first one. We're talking about financial lasting power of attorney there.
And it's funny because I went originally to Simpler Law before they worked with us here on Shop on TV for Mum's lasting power of attorney, the financial side. That's all we knew about, really. And then they discussed with us that there was a second lasting power of attorney, which is more about the health sort of side to things. And when you told me about it, I was like, Mum, this is just as important, or actually more important to me than the financial side.
Yeah, it's more of an emotional side. So the health document, again, it's the choice of who you'd like to do that for you, but those people that you nominate can decide where you're living. So it could be a child that wants you to live at home with them, they can make that choice. If you do need to go into care, again, they have the choice of where that care home is. Even down to little things like what you're eating, what you're wearing, which sound really trivial, but could be really, really important if you're a vegetarian.
In that situation,
if you want to wear, you wear a certain lipstick every day, it could be your look.
Yeah.
Only your loved ones are going to know that about you and can actually continue that for you when you're unable to.
Yeah.
But another thing as well with the care homes is they can actually stipulate who you don't want to visit you. So if you are in a care home and someone's got a health power of attorney for you, you might be estranged from someone, and they can actually stipulate who can and can't visit you to continue that.
Peace of mind,
And
that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, you'd think, it's fine. Obviously, for my mum, of course I can sort out. Everybody knows that I love her and that I could, if I want to do this and do that with Mum, it can happen. But in the eyes of the law, that can't happen. And actually, I remember a story, and the lady was actually a nurse.
Yeah.
And didn't she take her mum from a care home for Christmas or something? And
Yeah, we don't know whether she asked and was told no and just did it anyway, or whether she just assumed. But yeah, she just took her mum out of a care home and took her home for Christmas dinner. And of course, the care home where's she gone? And it sounds a little bit again melodramatic, but obviously they had to report her as, for all intents and purposes, as kidnapped. She's gone missing.
Gosh.
So that involved the police, and of course the police finally caught up with them and had to bring her back. But I suppose, we don't think logically about our loved ones, but if I can ask people to think logically for just a second, we made the point about, you made a brilliant point about your mum, is everyone in your circle knows that you would do right by your mum and that you love your mum and wouldn't do anything to harm her, but the bank don't know that.
no.
And it'd be very, very weird if we could if I walked into your bank, Hayley, and said, oh, by the way, I've known Hayley for years now and I get on really well. And
She won't mind me taking all the money.
No, and I'm not trying to be facetious.
No, but
no. We don't think about it like that. And it's weird because whether it's a health and welfare decision or whether it's a financial decision, it's strange how people assume or think that they would suddenly become empowered to be able to do something they can't do when the person's well.
Yeah.
It's actually quite the opposite. You can't do it when they're well because you haven't got the authority to, and you definitely can't do it when they're not well because now they're even more protected. So the only thing to do is say, right, let's hope that I never need to use these documents, but let's put lasting powers of attorney in place. Then at least I've got the peace of mind that if life did throw me a curveball, I know that my husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, whoever you choose, and that's the key,
you would get back to your choice.
will be the ones that step into your shoes. If you don't have those documents in place, the only guarantee we can give people then is, unfortunately, someone close to you is going to have to go through the court procedure to actually be able to look after you.
And we saw the cost of that. That can actually take
the time,
up to a year. The thing I think a lot of people for lasting power of attorney, and it really only hit us when we sat down and spoke to you, is you actually think lasting power of attorney for an older person. I thought of it for my mum because she's older and something might happen. But actually, my best friend was knocked over in her 40s and still in a care home now.
Yeah.
It's never too early to have a lasting power of attorney, is it?
They have to be registered with a body called the Office of Public Guardian before the attorneys can use them. But it's up to you, and again, we'll give you all the advice, and it's your decision. These aren't our documents, these are your documents. But we'll talk you through all your options. The important thing with lasting power of attorney is to make sure that they're signed, dated and witnessed correctly. We help a lot in making sure that's right.
Yeah.
That's the key to it. We're still registering documents that clients signed over 20 years ago. They were then called enduring powers of attorney. But it's not unusual for us to get a phone call, and whilst it's sad, it's nice at the same time. We'll get a phone call and someone will say, did my dad make a lasting power of attorney with you? We're like, yes, we've got it here. Sadly, he's being diagnosed with, right, let's get it registered. The important thing is to get it signed, dated and witnessed correctly, because if it's not, you then can't get it registered with the Office of the Public Guardian.
That was one of the things with Hayley, when she did it with her mum, there was a discrepancy,
and you did make everything so easy, and you can actually follow things as well on the internet as to how to sign it, how it should be signed. Though it's, they've told you as well, it's all there for you, and we did all of that. But bizarrely, and we didn't realise, my mum's neighbour, well, our neighbour for forever, for all my life, she'd lived next door to us, and we knew her as one name, and then when she signed, didn't realise that the name she'd gone by was her middle name. And so she sort of signed one way, wrote it another way, and you picked that up and said that, this isn't right. We would never have realised, and that wouldn't have been valid because it didn't make sense legally.
Exactly right, and this is where we take you through the whole process, even up to making sure they're signed correctly. We offer a free validation service for you, so we can actually check the document has been signed correctly, so that that peace of mind again, it's legal and it's in place. So from you making that first step to having your document signed legally, we will lead you all of the way.
That's why it's so important to do it with a company like yourself,
experts in the field.
And you're award-winning now, aren't you?
We are.
Which is how fabulous is that?
It's great.
No, look, that's down. Look, it's going to sound cheesy, but it's true again. It's down to everybody at Simple Law. It's down to every part of the team. There's lots of cogs that turn to be able to get that will out and get it accurately to you in a good time. But yeah, we were very proud of that last year at the British Wills and Probate Awards to actually be announced as the top large firm specialising in estate planning.
And I do think that is down to the fact you make it so easy, it's so personable. When you look at the 5-star reviews, and we say this a lot, it's not really Simpler Law that's mentioned. It's actually the individual person that you dealt with. They become friends. It's nothing to worry about. Whether you're doing a will or a lasting power of attorney, you don't need to know anything. Through chatting, they'll get the information, and they do become friends.
And just put you at ease. It's such an easy process. You don't have to be scared of anything. Review-wise, let's take a look at one of those reviews that we're talking about. Charles says this. Oh, Charlotte got a mention here. Oh, how embarrassing, Charlotte. My consultation was done by Charlotte. She was very professional, explained thoroughly each stage, making sure it was firstly what I wanted and that I also understood any advice she gave me. Excellent service. They're brilliant, these, and this really is the point that Hayley was making. It's all about the people who are mentioned. This one from Nita. I wanted to rewrite my will and saw the advert. When Ollie phoned me today, he was very helpful, provided me with excellent customer service, helping me and explaining things when I wasn't sure about something. And that's why that process is so good, that hand-holding process. As Hayley said, herself and her mum, really nervous.
Biggest
really worry.
Is that my mum's worse than me, and I'm shocking. And anything to do with law, if there's a flashing light behind us, I think I know I haven't done anything wrong, but I'd be pulling over. It's me. I did it. It was definitely my fault. So we sat there. And we actually did it on the video call because I did it with mums, just to sit there to be with her. And we were like that, oh, gosh. And then just in minutes, we were like,
what a relief.
Oh, wow, this is such a relief. And, never once, and I worry about everything I say, did I say thank you enough? Did I say please enough? Never once did I think that was a stupid question, Hayley. I never felt at any point, don't say that, because I felt so at ease I could ask anything. And then afterwards, I could email at any point, oh, gosh, I forgot to ask that. And not once did you make me feel I was troubling you. Not once was you rushing me. No. It was just so... It was so comfortable and nice to work with you.
Absolutely, yeah. And, I know we do this day in and day out, but we know that every single person is unique and it is important to every single client that we speak to. So we don't lose sight of that and how important it is. And I think a lot of clients actually can sometimes have a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
We take you to a dark place for a couple of minutes, but apart from that, as you say, you do become friends.
Yeah.
You know, you get to know a lot about
so much about us, absolutely, that you do become friends. Now, we've got some really great deals tonight. We've talked about the will, we've talked about the lasting power of attorney.
The best offer of all is if you go for a combination, you go for a will and lasting power of attorney. That is available for you, again, at a massively reduced price against the suggested retail prices. Let's show you all the offers that we've got for you. So we're seeing the combination there. A suggested retail price of $558 down to $269. You don't even have to pay that. Simple are offering you 4 interest-free payments on all of these offers, $67.25.
Doesn't that make it so affordable?
Really,
I know earlier Ian was saying about we insure all, everything, don't we? And my mum, a bit back, she went, hey, I've been insuring the dishwasher. She said, she said, I only use it once a week, and I only use it once a week just to use it because I don't really need it anymore. It's the dishwasher we had as a family of 6. You know, she's like, why am I paying? My goodness, you could have bought 300 dishwashers for the price you've been insured. We waste all that money, and this money is actually investing in you, in your family, in your life. It's peace of mind. If it's a will, it's your final gift to your loved one. If it's lasting power of attorney, it's knowing if something happened to you, that a loved one would look after you, that they could step into your shoes and make sure that, you know, they can pay all the bills on the house, or they can discuss your treatment or what home you go into. So important. So all of those deals, whichever deal you're going with, do remember only up until Friday at 5 p.m, close of business. Yeah. It's a limited time offer. Please make sure you get in touch before then. Best thing though, because my mum still hasn't had a patio done. We put everything off, don't we?
Been a while.
Put everything off, don't we? 2 years it must be now. Must get the patio done. It's treacherous at this time of year. It's higgledy-piggledy. It's a bit frosty, and a stick goes, and then she's tripping over another. We must get, and we haven't. Do you know why we haven't? Because we just haven't got round to making that phone call to get someone to come round and actually give us a quote. And it's crazy. So don't wait till tomorrow or till Friday. Do it right now, because you know life gets in the way. All of a sudden it'll be spring, it'll be Easter, won't it? And then it's summer holidays, and it'll be next Christmas.
There's always something else,
and you still haven't done it. So do it now. And the great thing is you don't need to do anything other than get in touch with us right now.
Really simple and straightforward for you to get in touch. You can go directly to Simple Law's website, simplelaw.co.uk/shop on TV. You can call, and the team are there right through till 3 a.m. They're live in the call centre, 0333 600 2600. And you don't need any documents with you. You don't need anything at all with you. It's just taking that first step, as Hayley
And if you do call, you know, they're there to answer you. They're all ready and waiting. You can ask a couple of questions, but there's no questions tonight either way, really. It's just saying, I'd like to secure the deal. I want to take that first step. This is my New Year's resolution. It's still January. I'm going to get organised this year. The easiest way is that text. And you know, I know we talk a lot, but when we're at home, we're like, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Don't even talk
we
to
argue
each
about
other.
who's going to answer the door. I don't want to answer the door. You go and answer the door. If the phone rings, you answer it. I don't want to answer it. So perhaps you don't want to talk to anybody tonight. Just text Will to 66777. That's it.
Now, Will's not a person. It's the word Will.
So and you've done it. That is so simple. And do you know what you've done? You've given yourself that peace of mind. You've put the wheels in motion. It's actually going to happen. You're going to get that will sorted. There's nothing better. Perhaps you wanted to declutter the house and you still haven't done it again. You were definitely going to do it in January. And you know when you do eventually do it, it'll be just that.
Such a relief.
So much nicer.
Things like
and it's
this,
exactly that, whether it's will or lasting power of attorney. Once you've got it done, it's just such a relief. And the biggest thing is this first step. Once you've done that, Simpler Law, honestly, very much do everything else for you. It's fabulous.
And it's for you and it's for your family as well. Whether it's the will, the lasting power of attorney, or the combination that you can see there. You can also get in touch on our website, shopontv.co.uk. Scroll down and you'll see the Simpler Law logo right there in the middle. Click on there and it takes you through to the form. You just fill the form in and it's as simple as that. If you are filling the form in on the website or you're texting, remember, they will not ring you first thing in the morning. So if you're staying up late, you don't have to worry, it'll be after 11 a.m. This morning. Really simple, straightforward form there for you to fill in. You saw on the contact page, the first 250 people who do secure the offer get this book. And this book, well, how did this come about, Ian? Because it's a great book for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, it developed over a period, really, and it was born out of our estate administration department. So when we talked earlier about executors, the people that have to deal with your estate, we often help clients do that, and part of that process is gathering everybody's assets, and that was quite challenging for some families. But also what came out of it is we realised that lots of things were perhaps being missed by lay executors who didn't necessarily have the tools that we've got as professionals
to find.
And some staggering figures came out of it, that it's believed in the UK there's £5 billion of pension pots that have gone unclaimed.
How much?
5 billion. But I suppose
just sat there going nowhere.
Yeah, my dad was 80 last year, and I'm from Sheffield, and I always remember my dad working at the steelworks. But truthfully, and I've not spoken to him about it, even though I have this conversation, I kind of think I know 2 or 3 that he worked out. Now, don't get me wrong, he's receiving pensions that he's due now because he's 80. But some people have paid into pensions at different places and they don't necessarily get found. So it's believed there's 5 billion that's unclaimed. But if you sit down with a cup of tea, you can document where you've got a pension. But even like with past employers, you know, you might have only worked at a company for a few years, but there might be a frozen pension there that your estate's entitled to. A big number again, £2 billion of unclaimed life insurance policies. So someone's got paid up life insurance, but the policy's not being found. And there's believed to be £850 million in UK banks, again, that isn't claimed.
Just sat there.
Just in bank accounts that no one knows about.
So that's the monetary thing. But also what we found out is clients were saying to us, we don't know how to access this tablet, and that's where the photos were stored, or you know, the videos were stored. And I'm not exactly tech savvy, I'm too old for that now, but apparently there's this thing called the cloud. But you still need a password or a key to get into the cloud. And unless you leave that information, sometimes all those memories, and as awful as it sounds, they cannot be accessed. You know, it's well known that some brand of products aren't even broken into by the FBI.
Yes, yeah.
You know,
Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's secure, you know, and it's a shame really, because we don't think about it. And all this does is it's part of the process, if you like. It's part of estate planning. It's part of you taking control. Is you're going to take stock of what you've got. And again, it's really selfless.
Yeah.
This whole thing, I think, is quite cathartic for clients.
Yeah.
When you speak to people, I think they put it off, A, because I think they think it's going to be really expensive because it's a legal document. Well, obviously, because of the size that we are, we're a nationwide company, and through shows like this, hopefully we've dispelled the expense side. I think the will works out the equivalent like 83p a day over those 4 months if you decide to pay over 4 months. So I'm the moron that stops at a certain coffee shop at least.
You're the coffee buyer,
at least once or twice a week, and goes, oh, £6 for a coffee.
Yes, please.
I mean, it's a pretentious thing I order, but that's by the by. But we will spend money on what we think we want to spend money on, and we forget to spend it on something that's really important. This will is incredibly selfless, but incredibly valuable. So people put it off because they think it's going to be expensive. It's not. They put it off because they think it might be morbid sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
And you'll be amazed how cathartic it is, and it's far from morbid. Yes, as Charlotte quite rightly said, we take you to a dark place for a minute or two. If the worst happened yesterday, what would you want to see happen? And we make that happen for you. And then some people put it off because they think their situation is just too complicated or they don't want to face it. And I promise you, if you speak to someone like Charlotte or a member of her team, you'll realise when you get to the end of it that all that time you wasted not doing it, it was nothing like you thought it was.
Absolutely.
I must say, I don't think you should let this price that you're offering put you off, because it's so affordable, you know, because you guys are experts in the field. Simple Alloy, you've told us some amazing stories. There's one thing, Ian, that I know is a bit of a bugbear of yours, and it's those templates that people sometimes get hold of.
Which you do have to pay for as well.
Yeah.
But why are they so bad? Why does it upset you so much?
Let's be really clear, we don't hide from this fact. You can do a lot of things yourself now, and weirdly even legal documents, but you know, there's lots of videos online that show you how to do lots of things, but unless you're an expert in what it is that you're trying to do, and certainly something as important as this, I don't know why you take that risk, because you're quite right, most templates you have to pay for, so they guide you anyway. So you're still paying money, but then that template isn't going to give you any advice. You don't get to speak to someone who's highly trained and qualified like Charlotte, who's been doing this for years and can guide you through everything. That template also won't give you advice on making sure that it's signed, dated and witnessed correctly, and it won't do a free validation. Some of the heartbreaking things that we see are wills that fail.
Yeah. So people have tried to write a will, but it's
even
not.
In this digital age, documents aren't valid unless they've got a wet signature on and it's dated, it's signed and it's witnessed by 2 independent witnesses. Now that all sounds quite easy, but we have to make sure that we get that right, and we help you with all of that. Lasting powers of attorney, again, they have to be signed, dated and witnessed correctly and in a certain order, and we help you with all of that. And there's certain free text boxes in there that you can make a lasting power of attorney unworkable. So doing this yourself, unless you're a qualified will writer or an estate planner, I don't know why you'd take the risk.
Well, there's lots that can go wrong, isn't there?
And it must be so upsetting. And I know, again, another story that really sticks in my mind were grandparents, and they had written their own will, but because obviously you know exactly how to word it correctly,
terminology,
though they knew what they wanted and that's what they'd put down in their mind, it was wrong, wasn't it?
It wasn't what what they wanted it to be, yeah, because they didn't understand something that we talk about regularly, but people look at you a bit strange. Well, they go, oh, do they want that gift to be made on first death or second death? Which sounds like a weird thing to say. But when you're dealing with a couple, if they want to leave specific gifts, it's like, well, do you want to leave that gift, especially if it's money, do you want to leave that gift after you've both passed away or after one of you's passed away? And in most cases, depending on how liquid their estate is, it makes sense that, oh, we want cash gifts to go on second death when we've both passed away. On first death, we want everything to go to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, this gentleman had written a template. It was really basic, but it worked. But he'd put cash gifts and he'd written £20,000 to each of his grandchildren. And he'd mirrored that in his wife's will as well. But it was written before the residue which would go to each other. And what that means is the cash gifts were due to be paid on first death. Now, the reason it got difficult is this gentleman owned the house in his own name.
Right.
The house was only worth about £250,000, say only. That's because when he wrote the will, I think he had 3 grandchildren, and when he passed away, he had 8. So suddenly there's
And it just said grandchildren.
Yeah, so there's £160,000 due as cash gifts from his will.
And that's
After
all in the
his
house.
death.
Yeah, because he'd written it on first death. And obviously there's no money in his estate, there's only the house. So to be able to meet those cash gifts means the selling of the house, but obviously he wants his wife
to live in.
So all of a sudden it's a mess. But if he'd had taken professional advice, and I'm not, you know, don't speak ill of the dead, but it was clear what they both wanted to have. Now, the worry was
the wishes are there.
His wife, his widow, when she passed away, her will was saying exactly the same. So if she died any time soon, there was another £160,000 due. So their actual children who they really wanted to inherit were getting nothing. You just think, he obviously did this a long time ago, he didn't update it, and what he thought he was doing was correct, but it was actually not, because everyone was saying, no, they wanted this to be after they'd both passed away. But the reason that it wasn't is because of how he'd written it himself. But I always say, it sounds a bit crass, but if I get a toothache, I go to a dentist.
Yeah.
You know, if you want a will, go to a will writer. You don't come to me or Charlotte for a divorce, a boundary dispute, a personal injury claim.
Right.
You don't come to us for any other aspect of the law. We specialise in one area. That's making sure that everything you've worked hard for goes to the people that you want it to. Touch wood, we've never had a will fail.
That's brilliant, isn't
and
it?
that's
we're insured
all,
for
isn't it?
£5 million as well.
Wow.
In case one did, but touch wood, we've never had an insurance claim because we do the job right. You know, we have to check Charlotte's work every day.
Oh, you're awful. I'm surprised Charlotte comes in with you.
It's right, I'll wait till we're off.
Absolutely. We'll all sort him out back
But
there.
it all comes back to, you can only speak to Charlotte if you take the hardest step, which is tonight, is to text the word will to 66777.
And why is it so important to have a will? Because I think what a lot of people don't realise, and we honestly didn't, we've been together 34 years, I've worked it out, 34 years. And
lucky thing.
Which one of you gets the medal for that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, to be fair.
But we know, and we have been together virtually 34 years, living, working, our life has been together. So obviously, if something happened to me, everything I own is Sean's. If something happened to Sean, everything he owns is mine. And that actually isn't the case.
That's
and
just
we
a presumption.
didn't realise. We're not married. We didn't realise that
Well,
at all. But it's not even as easy as if we were married.
No.
We hear phrases like common law.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. That's what we presumed, that we were common law husband and wife.
And we totally understand that, but again, I think there is a lack of information out there. And I think what you said with the presumption, like I said, what I've come to realise, I think, over the last quarter of a century is that it's really more of a hope. Is, if the worst happens to me, I hope that Sean gets everything. If the worst happens to me, I hope that Hayley gets
Or perhaps
everything.
you've told the kids so they know what you want to happen.
Yeah, and that's
so
a
the
common-
kids know.
Yeah.
But
That's
the
not
awful
enough.
thing is, if it's not on a legal document, you have got a will, haven't you? I think this is what a lot of people don't. We didn't realise. If we hadn't have written a will falls in place, doesn't it?
Yeah, we all have a default will if we don't make our own, and I think that's really one of the key things that isn't widely known. So if you're almost choosing not to make a will, and if you're watching this show, I'm going to be a little bit harsh. After hearing us explain this, you are making a choice not to write a will, so you will get the government will. There's lots of people out there who, understandably don't know anything about wills because they've never thought about it. But if you don't make your own will, you are making another conscious decision, or an unconscious decision almost, to accept the government will. So we all have a default will. It's called the rules of intestacy. It was established, you can see it on the screen there. that's a set of legislation that was put in place in 1925. So it's about to celebrate, if celebrate's the right word, it's centenary.
Gosh.
But of course, society was very different when this default will was created. So it, you know, the stereotypical, you were married with 2.4 children. So it kind of did half a job, but it can't do all of a job because there's nothing personal about it.
Yeah.
But obviously 100 years later, it's not unusual for us at all to be speaking to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are now on their second marriage, and Mr. Smith might have a son from a previous relationship and Mrs. Smith might have a daughter from a previous relationship. There's nothing unusual about that at all. And they might have been married on the second go for longer than they were on the first marriage.
And lived together all that time.
They see themselves as a family unit.
unit.
They don't consider themselves a stepson, stepdaughter, stepsister, stepbrother. They're a family in their eyes. So that's how they think everyone else is going to perceive them. But sadly, the law doesn't see them as the family from the same bloodline. And the rules of intestacy only follows your bloodline and your marital status.
So what would that mean if...
So forgive the finger puppets, but if Mr. Smith died first, for example, everything would pass to his wife, Mrs. Smith, but then when Mrs. Smith died, it would pass to her daughter only, and Mr. Smith's son would be left out completely. And it sounds a bit melodramatic again. It rips that family apart.
Yeah, family breakdown.
And unfortunately, this is happening every day.
Yeah.
It's not a one-off, and no one's doing it maliciously, but the devastation following the death of someone that you love and then finding out that actually, oh, we're not both inheriting, only one of us is inheriting. And then sometimes you get clients and parents that will say, well, I'm sure our Sarah would look after our John, or I'm sure our John will look after our Sarah.
And then emotions are up here, aren't they?
Yeah, and you don't know what position, you don't know what financial position they're in, you don't know what their partner's position is. You know, Sarah might do the right thing, but is her husband going, why are we giving this to your stepbrother?
Yeah.
But more importantly, why would you want to put that pressure on your children?
Absolutely.
When you can actually take all of that away? You can speak to someone like Charlotte for half an hour, maybe less, and we can fix all of those problems. Because what you don't want is a government will, because it doesn't care about you.
No.
It doesn't care about you, it doesn't care about your family, it doesn't care about what you own. When you speak to someone like Charlotte, she'll ask you all those questions and then say, right, what do you want to happen? And that's why your will is unique, because it's unique to you, your family and your estate. And it's so important. I mean, I got criticised by my friends recently when they saw this show because I said it's invaluable, you can't put a price on it, and then said it's £99. but obviously the point
Who needs friends like that?
the point I'm trying to make is obviously hopefully a clear one, is this is not a lot of money for something that's your last act on planet Earth and is so valuable and so selfless for your family.
And I think there's so many things you don't realise as well that you can add it, that you put into your will. Because I think instantly we think of what you own, and perhaps you think, well, I haven't got a lot, but you live probably in a house, you've got a car, you don't realise what you've got, I think, until you actually sit. I often say, oh, we haven't got, but then you're like, oh no, we have got a house.
But it's not just about money, is it? It's about so many other things.
And something you perhaps aren't thinking about is actually children.
Yeah.
And this is a horrible thing to even think about. But if both parents died and they didn't have a will saying what they wanted to happen to the children, what then happens?
You're essentially relying on the right person to step forward in that scenario. So it might not even be the people that you would have initially chosen. No. So you're relying on that person to step forward, but if not, then, well, it could be more than one person.
I was going to say,
in most instances,
maybe
if you've got
both sets of
two
grandparents.
sets of grandparents, you know, that you might all be really close initially, but if you've got two sets of grandparents, you know,
it should be me, it should be me, and then
emotions are heightened in that scenario already because they've lost their children, but they then obviously want to protect their grandchildren. But if they're both going forward, this is where again you can see family dispute, and at the centre of all of this is children under the age of 18 that have lost their parents, that have got to see all of this.
Yeah.
And in a really, really worst case scenario, could become a ward of the court and not actually be with a guardian at that point. And that's a very worst case scenario. But again, just by picking up the phone today or sending a text and making that choice,
Just write it down.
just putting guardianship in a will and you making the choice of who that person is, knowing they're going to take care of your children, that's all avoided.
Yeah.
There'll be people watching now who say, oh, but we've got godparents.
Yeah,
you
things like
see,
that.
really big thing.
I always thought that.
Until you told us about this.
We've got so many godchildren. I thought, my goodness, we have a house full.
We're going to have to get a bigger house.
But that's like, what are we going to do?
Like the Waltons.
Yeah, we'll be a godparent, but that's fine.
Night, Haley.
Because you do.
Night, Sean.
No, it'd be more like the Von Trapps in our house. Definitely.
Because you do think, as godparents, that's you've taken on that responsibility that you will take on the children.
Yeah, totally understandable misconception again, but obviously that's a religious position. It's not a legal position. And if you've got children and you've ever had to sign a form for school,
right?
If you cast your mind back to the last time you had to complete any document, there's only 2 classes of people that can sign for that child, and it says parent or guardian, and legal guardianship. So you have parental responsibility, but you can pass on that parental responsibility through your will. And when we do speak to parents of younger children, they actually all have a very good idea of where, whilst you don't want to think about it, they have a very good idea of where they would want their children to go.
Of course.
Now, my wife and I, our boys are getting on a bit now, as am I. They're 15 and 13 now, but they would still need to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've named our guardians. We know that our guardians are a similar age to us, have the same values as us, that the boys love them, they love the boys. So whilst I don't want to think about not seeing them turn into young men,
of course,
I've done the best that I can, and I've got peace of mind in that. That's quite a cathartic thing. I know that if the worst did happen to me and Jeannie, that we've done the right thing by our boys, and that there'll be no arguments, and everyone knows what's going to happen, that the boys would go to this couple over here. And again, it's just this awful situation. No one wants to think about it. And of course, having a will wouldn't make that situation any better, but it doesn't make it worse, because then it's like, we know that we want this couple then to bring up our children. You're doing this for yourself, but at the same time, ultimately you're doing it for your family.
Of course, yeah.
And that's why it's quite a cathartic process when you go through it. You'll find out things about yourself and your family that perhaps you didn't realise, but you can only do that if you do the hardest thing, which is text us this morning, or you know, Charlotte's colleagues are there right now. If you phone 0333 600 2600, you'll get to speak to one of Charlotte's colleagues.
Charlotte,
you won't regret you did it.
You always say, people are always like, it's a weight lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah, always. And a lot of clients will come to the start of the consultation and be really nervous and not sure. And honestly, by the end, all of them are saying, oh gosh, that is a weight lifted. Or sometimes you didn't realise you had that burden actually until you get to the end of the consultation. Oh gosh, I'm so glad I've got that done. So yeah, it's
all private
really...
and confidential as well. So sometimes they'll share things with us that they might not necessarily want to share with other people. It's all private and confidential, and the document is unique to you.
Great.
But the key is, it's your document.
Yeah,
The government will isn't your document.
Yeah.
It's a default position. Please don't pass away with the
And
government
it's not
will.
difficult, it's not complicated. I know for me, well, 2 things really. We thought it'd be really expensive. And also I thought it'd be really complicated. And, you know, all sort of law things frighten me. I worry about everything. Well, I know I'm going to look stupid because I won't know the answers. You actually don't need to know anything, do you?
That's the great thing about it. It's not a test.
No. You know how we're sat down chatting tonight?
Yeah, this is what it's like.
It will be exactly that. So you haven't got to go find loads of things out. You actually just sit down, have a conversation with some really lovely people. You know, whoever, I know from the 5-star reviews, whoever you sit down with, they're just fantastic. And they virtually talk the answers out of you without you even realising, and you know, and we'll think of things that you wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah, exactly that. Tina's messaged in. Hi, Tina. She was asking, is it a house visit? It's not, is it? It's all done over. You can do it all over the phone.
Yeah, at a time that's suitable for you. Again, it's all about the choice. We'll contact you once you've made that first initial step, either whether it's later on today or tomorrow, and we'll do a date and time of your choice. Like I say, sit in bed if you want to, sit on the sofa, a cup of tea in hand.
So
we'll give you a time.
Secure the deal tonight,
yeah,
and then we could talk to you. I'm really busy actually until sort of the end of February. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever works for
Whatever
you.
works.
It's your choice.
That's
it's
great.
when's best for you, and it's at your pace as well.
Right.
So we'll go at your pace, however long it takes to get that done. You won't get a document through unless you are happy with it.
And that is the nicest thing as well, is I never at one point, and we did lasting power of attorney with Simpler Law, before we worked with them, prior to them coming to us here on Shop on TV. And it was just so simple. I never once felt I asked the wrong question.
No.
Or felt I couldn't ask a question because which I always do. I think, oh, I can't ask that. That's
Can't
a bit
ask
of a
that.
silly
Oh,
question.
you always think it'll be the wrong thing to
Yeah.
ask, but you
Never
don't
once.
feel like
They made it so easy.
It's so put at ease with Charlotte and Charlotte's team. They're all the same. It's not legal jargon that's going to confuse you. Everything's explained beautifully. And right now you don't need anything apart from getting in touch. And these offers are spectacular.
Now remember, they are time limited, only up until Friday at close of business at 5 p.m. The deals are phenomenal. I actually think full price wise, I thought it'd be hundreds and thousands, to write a will. So even at £209, it's a really good deal. But my goodness, you're saving £110 tonight if you secure this deal right now at £99. Phenomenal value for money. And of course, you can split that cost with 4 payments, completely interest-free, to £24.75. So if you think about that, I bet you spend more than that on coffee a week. Possibly, and if you think about what costs of petrol, takeaway, this is so affordable for that peace of mind. It's your last gift to your loved ones. And we're still in January. Perhaps this year you're going to get organised. This is still your New Year's resolution. We're just at the end of January. You've still done it. You've taken that step. You're going to sort that will out. Or perhaps it's lasting power of attorney.
Yeah, and we will talk more about lasting power of attorney. If you've heard the term, but you're not quite sure what it is, we'll talk about that very shortly. £349 is the suggested retail price, down to £199. But with those 4 interest-free payments, it's just £49.75 on your first of 4 payments there. But the best value of all in the deals that we're bringing you tonight is if you go for both the will and the lasting power of attorney. Now, just so you know, if you are in Scotland, the lasting power of attorney is a joint document, and we'll talk about that as we go further into the show, but simpler law can deal with that as well. But the will and lasting power of attorney should be £558. It's £269, our shop on TV offer price, and with those 4 interest-free payments, just £67.25. Brilliant prices.
Perhaps you're going to do the will, just do the will tonight. I'm going to do the will, but then after we've chatted more, you think, oh, I wish I'd done the lasting power of attorney too. As long as you've got in touch, and it's so easy to get in touch, those deals are secured. So if you decide after you've done the will you want the lasting power of attorney as well, as long as you've been in touch tonight, honestly, they will, you've secured those deals, whatever you decide to go for. You can either go through the website, simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV, or the team are on the phones right now.
Yeah, they're in the call centre right through till 3 a.m. You don't need any documentation. All you've got to do is call through. 0333 600 2600 is the phone number, right through till 3 a.m. And all you're doing is securing those offers that we've talked about.
Yeah, you're not answering any questions tonight. And the easiest thing, actually, perhaps you don't even want to talk to anybody, just text WILL, IILL, to 66777, and honestly, that is the easiest thing to do. Did I say double I? WILL. I thought it sounded a bit strange. WILL. Will. Yeah,
What's
I was like that. I don't. Yeah. Don't text the other one. Text Will. WILL. I'm terrible at spelling.
That's why you normally just
and
say
even
will.
I could do my will and lasting power of attorney because Simpler Law dealt with it all. But honestly, text Will to that phone number 66777 because that is the simplest thing to do. And you've taken a small step. Don't have to speak to anybody tonight. They'll get back in touch to find out when it's right and easy and a good time to speak to you. It honestly is so simple. Another reason to do it right now, it is time limited anyhow, so it's up until 5 o'clock on Friday. But actually, the first 250 people get this book.
Yeah, this is What My Family Should Know. This book, basically, it's where you can record all your documents, all your regular documents, like your pensions, things such as that, all your financial details, your assets, as you can see there. But things like your passwords for your social media, for your laptop and for your tablet and for your phone, all the things that you need in one place. Now, that's worth £25. It's going to go to the first 250 people who secure
And so many people want to buy this book afterwards, but you could actually, if you're the first ones to, to actually just secure the deals tonight. That book will be yours, the first 250 people. And I think it's invaluable. I really do think, and I said originally we should have it from birth, but that's perhaps a little bit early. Perhaps from when you're working, from teenage years, and you start working. It's so important. You know what it's like if someone has it passed and you've got to try and find this information, and it's in shoe boxes here, and it's not even that easy now because so much is on iPads and phones, and you need all those passwords. It's all in that book, and it just makes life for your loved ones again so easy. And that's what this show is all about, actually, is actually making life for, if you're writing a will, for your loved ones to be better, rather than looking down and seeing the whole family fall out because what you wanted to happen isn't happening. Because if you don't write a will, there is a government will that falls in place, and it's honestly not right for anybody. But as the lasting power of attorney, which I think lots of people, we had only heard of it through illness, really.
Yeah.
I think lots of people have heard of lasting power of attorney but won't realise what it is.
That's why it's so important. This section of the show is really educational, really, because if you don't know about it, you will want to put this in place for yourself. Lasting power of attorney. Now, tell everybody what it is first of all, because there's two types we're going to talk about. But what is it initially?
Yeah, so these are documents that you need to put in place whilst you've got capacity. So while you can make your own decisions, that allow you to nominate who you trust to make your decisions for you, if anything should happen. So it could be ill health, it could be a freak accident, it could relate to any age. A lot of people associate these with the elderly, but if anything happens where you can't make your choices, whoever you've nominated can step into your shoes, essentially, and become you in that scenario.
Right.
That's
and
what the documents
the
do.
financial one, first of all. So this is everything, isn't it, financially?
Yeah, yes. There's two documents. There's combined as one in Scotland,
Right.
but the two documents are property and finance. So this one, anything financial, as you've said. So it could be that you've nominated one person or multiple people. They can access your bank account, so pay bills.
Yeah, you don't think about things like that.
No, these things don't stop.
It carries
because
on,
you've lost your
doesn't it?
capacity.
Because whether you're married or you've got, really good children, no one can step into your shoes and deal with any of this, can they?
No, well, while you've got capacity, you wouldn't be able to go into the bank and say, oh, I need to access some money from this person's account. They're going to say, you, the account holder, go through that data protection. So if someone's lost capacity, they're even more vulnerable. So it's really, really important to have these documents because, again, as you can see on the screen there, claiming pensions, benefits, if you're receiving benefits, you can claim benefits.
Oh gosh, and in case perhaps you'd need to sell a property to put somebody into a care home to cover costs.
Yeah.
That would be out of anybody's hands.
You wouldn't be able to do any of those things listed. Well, they're few really of the list that you can do, but anything from a financial point of view.
I think the summary does exactly what it says on the tin is you choose the people that you trust and effectively they become you then. So any institution you're dealing with, but you get to choose the person that's doing that.
And I think, again, it's a bit like a will. You do think, I think, me and Mum are so close. I look after Mum. Everybody knows that. So you just foolishly, because I know I couldn't go into a bank. We had issues with the bank with Mum being there, but I couldn't go into the bank and deal with her money. But I don't know, foolishly, you think, oh, if Mum's poorly, they'll say, oh, of course it's all right. But it's not going to be. But again, we're thinking, we're hoping.
It's a hope, yeah. And it's an understandable hope. I mean, our experience is when we're talking to a couple, it's not unusual if we're talking to a couple that one of them tends to take more control of the finances than the other. Yeah. It's like, oh, she deals with all of that, or he deals with all of that. Yeah. And if, God forbid, the curveball, is thrown at the person that deals with all of that, you've then got someone who's not used to dealing with the finances, but worse than that, actually can't.
Not allowed to, yeah.
So it's kind of it's a triple whammy. Something horrible has happened to someone that they love. They don't know where to start because they don't usually do it, and there's no one to help them because they haven't actually got the authority to do it. So again, it's a really selfless thing, making a lasting power of attorney. You'll get something out of it because you'll know it's people that you trust that are going to step into your shoes if you are thrown that curveball and you are incapacitated through ill health or an accident. But it doesn't make a bad situation better, but what it does is it doesn't make it worse because you know then that this person can just step into your shoes. Now, both types of documents have to be registered with something called the Office of Public Guardian before they can be used. Yeah. But the important thing is that you get them drafted, you get them signed, dated and witnessed correctly, and we help you with all of that. If you've done that, you're 90% of the way there. we've holding documents for clients that have done this years and years and years ago, and sadly we'll get the phone call that says, do you have a lasting power of attorney for my dad or an enduring power of attorney? And yes, we do. So it's sad that something's happened, but then there's a semi-nice thing that's come out of it is like, let's get this registered with the Office of Public Guardian, and then you can act. Without that document, it's a horrible, horrible situation for your family, because they're left floundering, and then there's only one route they can go, which is to apply for a deputyship order through the Court of Protection, which frankly is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, horrible for so many reasons, isn't it? Cost-wise, horrible. And you're already going through an absolute terrible thing. Some terrible thing has happened. Someone's very poorly, an accident's happened. So you're devastated, and then you've got to try and deal with
the court. Yeah, the court process. No one wants to deal with the court process. And the problem is, it's not just the expense. I mean, the expense is, it's ridiculously expensive. You know, considering that we're offering to draft a lasting power of attorney for £199, it's about £1,300, £1,400.
Well, we've got the costs.
There you go.
Costs here, and that's probably the least cost, because I'm guessing that annual fee, you could be paying that
each year.
every year.
Well, I think the important thing to point out there as well is that's assuming that you're going to do everything yourself without any professional help. And if you see these forms, and bearing in mind that you want your focus to be on your loved one, not with the court. So quite often people will ask a company like ours, they'll turn to a solicitor, they'll turn to another professional to help them do it. And of course, then you incur professional fees on top of the court fees. And again, it's all avoidable. I talk a lot, it's a bit cheesy, I talk a lot about the crystal ball. You know, if you had the crystal ball, you could see life never threw you a curveball. Well, you don't need lasting powers of attorney then. But then ask yourself a question at the moment, you know, are you insuring your car? And sometimes people say, oh yeah, but I have to insure my car legally. But legally, you only have to insure it third party, but I bet you're insuring it fully comprehensive. And it's like, do you insure your house? Do you insure the contents of your house? Do you insure your boiler? Do you insure your telephone? We'll pay for lots of these. People pay a fortune to cover vet bills for the pets.
Yes.
Small fortune for that. So we'll protect all these things around us and then forget about ourselves and the family. And that can be the most devastating of all. So whilst I want to be clear that lasting powers of attorney aren't insurance documents, I call them a what if. What if that life threw you a curveball? This document then means that the people that you chose, the people that you trust, will step into your shoes, and you've just made an awful situation not get any worse because now they can just step in. But without that document, they can't step in. It might be someone you wouldn't have chosen for yourself that tries to take control of your affairs and make decisions for you, and all of a sudden this horrible situation's got worse. So we don't do these shows to doom and gloom. This is just, unfortunate, this is just fact. And every time we hear or see a horror story, it sounds selfish to say that we're frustrated, but we think, if you'd have spoken to Charlotte for 20 minutes, that wouldn't be happening now. That's how impactful having a lasting power of attorney and having a will can be.
And I think you doing these shows, because I think lots of us just don't realise.
Not aware,
We're completely unaware, aren't we? You wouldn't dream to leave your family in a situation like will-wise, you know, without what you wanted to give to them. And in a lasting power of attorney, you just do presume
that presumption. Oh, it'll be all right.
That you'll be able to look after me. I'll be able
it'll
to.
be okay.
And again, legally, it's just
that's
it's
not how it
works.
And that's just the first part of power of attorney.
Well, we did come to you for Mum's financial lasting power of attorney. We learnt about it, obviously, sadly, through someone else's ill health, and we thought we've got to get this sorted. But when we sat down and spoke, and it was so easy to do, it was fabulous. You told us about there was a second lasting power of attorney, and though we'd come for the financial side, I was like to Mum, this is as important or more important, because there's a health lasting power of attorney as well, isn't there?
Health and welfare, so this one is more of an emotional side of things. So again, you can choose the same people or different people on your power of attorney for your health. It could be children, for example, but those children can then discuss where you're living. So if your daughter, for example, wants you to live at home with her, she can make that choice. If you need to go into a care home, again, they can make the choice as to which care home that is for you. Even down to really trivial things like what you're eating and what you're wearing.
But that is really important.
But it's really, really important.
That
if
becomes
you're a
massively
vegetarian,
important.
and if you can't make that choice for yourself, on a power of attorney document, you're called a donor, because you're donating your power to your attorney, so your children, for example, whoever that person would be. So they then essentially become you and have your voice.
Right.
So they can say, oh, Mum likes to have red lipstick on, Mum didn't like to eat meat. And these are really important things because it makes you you. And only your loved ones are going to know that. So yeah, this is just as important. And again, discussing medication as well.
Yeah.
Anything to do with the health side is just as important as well. But as Ian said, the main thing is getting these documents in place. Once you've got them, you can put them to the side. They do have to be registered, which there is a registration fee. It can be £82, it can be half price, it can be free depending on your circumstances. But you can do that as and when you want to.
Yeah, we did ours straight away, but you
Yeah.
don't need to do it straight away. You can do it when you need it as such.
Personal
Yeah.
preference or your own situation. Obviously, sometimes time's a factor. Other times it's like my wife and I have had these in place for well over 10 years. We chose back then not to register them because we thought we might choose our attorneys as life moves through, but they're signed, dated and witnessed,
Right.
ready to be registered if either of us need to act.
And I
Or
think-
more importantly, our attorneys need to act if anything, God forbid, happened to both of us at the same time.
Yeah.
And you can have more than one person as your
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we'll talk you through all of that. It's personal preference. You know, sometimes people are like, well, I've got 5 children.
Right.
And you'll say, okay. And they'll say, we want all 5. And then and this is where sometimes the laughter comes, and parents can be brutally honest about their kids, and they might go, mind you, our John's not very bright. But then there's a serious part to that, and say, well, would this son and they
Would
might go, well,
so-and-so
actually,
be
do you
better,
know,
Yeah.
our daughter's actually really switched on, and
Yeah.
she'd take care of it, and actually, yeah, let's just use these 2 or these 3.
Right.
Just
But
having
again,
that conversation, isn't
and
it?
this is
Yeah.
this is really key to why we do these shows, and it's the pivotal point. Is it's your choice, it's not ours.
Yeah.
We just give you the advice. You take our advice or you decline our advice. But at the end of the day, you're going to get the document that's right for you.
Yeah.
Because it's your document and it's unique to you and your situation.
And you know, something that I definitely got wrong until we sat down and spoke to you is lasting power of attorney I thought was for older people. And it's not. My friend was in a terrible accident in her 40s and she's still in a care home now. And if she didn't have a lasting power of attorney in place, she is a vegetarian, you know. So her mum could step in
Yeah.
and make sure everything that she knew she would want to happen
And her
is
clothes.
happening. Yeah.
Is that
She loves
so
her clothes.
important
Yeah.
what she wears, and you know they're all really, really important things. So you're never too young to have a lasting power of attorney, are you?
No,
Philip?
I think
never.
awfully in the UK, I think the youngest person diagnosed with dementia is now 26. So whilst that's extreme, but
We
it's
just don't know.
No, the last thing you ever want to do when you're talking to people about wills and lasting power of attorney is say, you know, the obvious, that life isn't fair. But all you can do is deal with what you can do today. And what you can do today is something absolutely amazing. And then, honestly, we know a will is going to be used. That's an inevitability. We've never met an immortal client. But again, we wish and we hope that that's decades down the line.
Yeah.
But we don't know. So do it now, and then don't worry about it because you did it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with lasting power of attorney. Honestly, when my wife and I did our lasting powers of attorney, we weren't drafting them thinking, ooh, let's hope our attorneys can act. And again, I'm not being facetious. We drafted them just so we know they're there.
Just
Yeah.
planning,
And
isn't
then,
it?
and it's done. Because, I mean, I'm an embarrassment. Because
Just generally.
Just leave it there. That's it.
if only I knew someone that could draft these documents for me. But we did what I sort of criticised people for doing and procrastinated quite a bit. It was like, well, we
Right.
must sort the, we've done the will now because, we moved house, we'd had 2 children,
Yeah.
we kept updating it as things moved along as we did. And I'm like, oh, actually, we needed to change that. We've not changed our, we need to update the lasting powers of attorney. I was like 2 months later. And I'm thinking, I would be criticising someone for that.
Yeah.
And it's even worse for me, because all I had to do is go, oh, Charlotte, can you update the lasting powers of attorney?
No
But we've all-
excuses.
But we've all done that, we've all
We
done
put
that.
everything off,
We've all
don't
got
we?
the priority on the
Yeah.
things to
Yeah.
do list sometime, and life does get in the way. So honestly, if you're listening to me waffle on now, well done. Sorry about the face. But the serious point to this is you've got a brilliant opportunity now to do something
Yeah.
amazing for you and your family, and I'm really serious about that. And look, we're so serious about what we do. There's no risk to you. If at the end of the consultation with Charlotte or one of her colleagues, you're like, that was awful, I hated every minute and I don't like any of it, we'll just give you your money back. Honestly, there's no risk to
Right.
you. And the one thing I promise you is you will never, ever regret putting these documents in place, ever, because there is nothing to regret.
No.
You never turn around, and certainly your family will never turn around and go, oh, why did Dad
What
do
did
his
you do?
will? Yeah, it's not an impulse purchase. It's not something ridiculous. It's really selfless. It's really valuable. It's really important. So you never, ever regret doing it. But the cheesy bolt onto that statement is an obvious one. Sometimes your family might regret that you didn't.
Yeah.
So don't put it off.
And you see that all the time.
Yeah, even if you're thinking, I don't want to speak to anyone now. I mean, Charlotte's colleagues are there. If I was you, phone them. But, but in all seriousness, if you don't want to speak to anyone now, still do the next easiest thing, which is just text the word "will" to 66777, and we will call you back. And again, you'll never regret that tonight you made that decision. And whilst those documents, hopefully the lasting powers of attorney, let's be honest, are never used. But if they are, what a brilliant thing you did for you and your family.
Definitely.
We know the will be used, and hopefully that's decades away. But what a brilliant thing you did for your family, because you did it now. So nothing's promised tomorrow, but you can act now. So please, text us this morning, phone this morning, go on our website. It'll be one of the best things you've ever done. And I like your New Year's resolution. There's still time.
Yeah, we're still in January.
I've thought about going to the gym every day in January.
Thought about it.
Thought about it every day. Once I turned up.
And?
I got an email, thought that's more important.
I better go.
And that's the truth. We put things off, don't we? And put things off time and time and time again.
Yeah.
If you don't do it right now, it'll be, oh gosh, it'll be Easter, won't it? And then all of a sudden, we're thinking about summer holidays.
Yep.
And then
Then it'll
before
be
you
Christmas
know
again.
it will be.
Yeah, yeah.
And you haven't done it again for a year, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and tomorrow might be too late. Just do it now. But the lovely thing is, all you're doing today is securing those deals. You don't need to know any answers.
You don't need any documents with you. You don't need any information. It's just about securing the deals and taking that first step. Just taking that first step, and that's the hardest part, getting started when it comes to wills.
And then it is that
attorney.
relief.
Yeah.
You know, you've done it. Perhaps
Weight
you
off your
wanted to
shoulders.
declutter the house this year, and you were going to do it in January, and you haven't. But you know, that time when you do declutter the house, when you tidy it up, when you throw a few things out, you just feel, oh gosh, why haven't I done that before? And this is the same. This first step, that's the hardest bit, and it will be that relief. Once you've written that will, you've done that lasting power of attorney, and you don't have to believe just us.
No.
And we have personally dealt with Simpler Law before they worked with us here on Shop on TV, and they were amazing. And for someone like me that's worried about everything and scared about everything, they just made everything so easy.
Yeah.
But look at the 5-star reviews.
Yeah, the
There's
reviews
so
are
many.
brilliant. Let's take a look at them now, some of them. You can see them on Trustpilot. We're just going to give you a few of them. This is David. David said, I spoke with Bjorn today about getting a will document drawn up. A very polite and friendly person. He was also very professional and efficient. He guided me through the process in a concise and clear manner. Very happy with the great customer service I received today. Thanks. And that's from David there. We've got another one for you from Sandra. I never recommend any services, but I definitely recommend Simpler Law. Very knowledgeable staff explained every step in detail and provided further advice and information. Whether it's the will or the power of attorney, or there you can see that combined offer, the will and the power of attorney, which is where the biggest saving is. Let's run you through the offers that Simpler Law have got with us exclusively, but these offers only last up to close of business on Friday.
They are, sadly, at Friday at 5 o'clock, these deals will go back up in price. I mean, they are actually really good prices beforehand. However, you've got massive savings if you just secure these deals tonight. Who would have thought you could actually get a professional will written for £99? And the other wonderful thing is you can split that over 4 payments. So £24.75 is the first of those 4 payments. And that, when you think about it, is probably less than you spend on coffee every week. You know, it's so little to have that peace of mind. It's your last gift to your loved ones to make sure what you want to happen actually happens. Because if you haven't written a will, a professional will, sadly there is a government will that will take over.
Exactly. The lasting power of attorney also is a fabulous offer. Exclusive offer with us here at Shop on TV. Suggested retail of £349 down to £199, and with those interest-free payments, just £49.75 on your first of 4 payments. The combination we talked about, the will and the LPA, remember, £558. It's a good price for that service from a professional professional company.
You're actually saving more than you're spending there.
£269 is the cost with us. Shop on TV and Simpler Law's exclusive offer, and £67.25 on your first of 4 interest-free payments. Don't forget, the first 250 clients who secure those offers will also receive that What My Family Should Know book. It's about having all the information you need in one place with that book, not looking all over the house trying to find things.
So well worth for that to do it right now. Just get onto the phones or the website. Actually, so easy to get in contact with us. And the great thing is you can do this right now without talking to anybody, talking to somebody, just going onto the website. It's entirely up to you. So either go to simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV, or the team are in the office right now. They're on the phone lines waiting for your call. Again, not to, you don't need to know anything.
No information. You don't need any documents. It's just taking that first step, as we said. 0333 600 2600 is the phone number. As Hayley said, team are there right through till 3 a.m. just securing the deal with us this evening, this morning, however you want to put it. Or the easiest way, and usually the busiest way, is if you just text.
I think sometimes you just don't fancy talking to someone now. Perhaps you're going to go off to bed now, or perhaps you're like us, you talk all day and the thought, I just don't want to talk to anybody else. You just text the word will to 66777, and that allows you then to actually secure the deal, and it's done. As simple as that. Your phone's going to be right by you, and I think it's one of the easiest. I enter every competition as a text one.
You do.
And this will be the best competition to actually enter. It's not a competition, but you are winning.
Everyone's a winner
because you've taken that first step.
We'll guarantee you get a call back.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's that peace of mind, and it's complete peace of mind, because I do think, sadly, we don't realise that if you haven't got a legal will in place, that there is a will there for you. It's what we call the government will. And hand on heart, I don't think this will is right for anybody, and we'll talk you through that because we didn't realise. We've been together for such a long time, 34 years, and presumed that obviously if anything happened to me, it would go to Sean. If anything happened to Sean, it would go to me. But that isn't the case at all.
No, and that's why it's so important to do it professionally with a company like Simpler Law, where everything is covered. You can't do anything wrong. We talk about, I'm looking at Ian again, we talk about templates, Ian. I know you don't like them.
You can do things online. You can buy templates online, but what?
Yeah, you can buy them in shops, believe it or not. Yeah,
really?
Look, the template is going to guide you on the basic things that you can put in that document. And I think where I get confused as to why these even allowed to exist, it's such an important document, and it's a legal document, that I do struggle to understand why you'd want to take the risk in doing it yourself, because you still have to pay money for these templates as well. But the template's not insured, whereas if you speak to someone like Charlotte, her advice is insured for up to £5 million. Also, if you speak to someone like Charlotte or her team, she's trained and this is what she does for a living. So this is all we do, day in, day out. And we don't lose sight of the fact that this might be the first, it might be the only time that you make a will. But we'll hold your hand through the whole process, and we'll go at a pace that's right for you. There's no time constraints. We'll give you full advice as we go through as well. And it's up to you how much of that advice, if any, that you take. But what we're guaranteed to do is give you a document that's right for you at the end of it. And we'll stand by that document. We'll take all the responsibility and the liability for it working. And touch wood, with over 200,000 clients, we've never had a will fail, because we do the job right. Where we do hear horror stories is where someone's tried to do a will themselves. It's either not signed and dated and witnessed correctly, or worse still, it's not being written correctly, and the outcome of the will isn't what the person wanted. And that's almost worse than if they didn't make a will at all, because it's sort of clear what they tried to achieve but didn't quite get it right. And I'm not doing this from like an accusatory point of view. You can only know what you know. I get in a car and I push a button and I know that which pedals to push.
We're off.
I don't know how an internal combustion engine works, because I've never needed to. And unless you know, things like sayings like Pasteur-Pease or first death and second death or the word issue, you're not expected to know that unless you operate.
But you could write it incorrectly, so
it happens a lot.
Could make a mistake.
What you actually wanted to happen and you think you've written down, it's not written right, so that doesn't happen what you wanted to happen.
No, and again, if you know that you need a will, and part of the reason we do these shows is to encourage people to do that, But the reason we do the exclusive offers through Shop on TV as well is we really do want to make it as affordable as possible. So we won't be a million miles away from the cost of the template anyway, but you get all the professional advice within that. So that the cost tonight gets you your will professionally drafted, and we'll hold your hand through the whole process. We'll make sure it is signed, dated and witnessed correctly. When you do your own will, there's no one giving you any advice. What you do is on you. There's no one to insure you. And unless you are qualified in this area, I honestly don't know why you take that risk. If I get a toothache, I'm going to go to a dentist. If my car breaks down, I'm going to take it to a garage.
Yeah.
You know, if I break my leg, I'm going to go to A&E.
Yes.
And I'm not being facetious, but it's always confused me why such an important document, which is your last act on planet Earth, there are these templates around that allow you to put at risk that it won't work. If you speak to someone like Charlotte, it will work, and we give you that guarantee.
Tell us the story about the grandparents that did write their own will, and again knew exactly what they wanted to happen, but obviously things changed a little bit and it wasn't written correctly.
No one did explain to the family that they wanted to give the grandchildren sort of a little leg up as well, so their children knew that they wanted cash gifts to go to their grandchildren. But essentially, he followed a template, the gentleman that wrote the will. He passed away and he was the sole owner of the house. And the understanding was, of course, that everything was going to be left to his wife, certainly the house, because obviously she still needed somewhere to live. And then when they both passed away, that a cash gift was going to go to the grandchildren, and then everything else that was in the estate was going to be split equally between their two children. That's not an uncommon thing. The problem is that he used a template and he wrote the cash gift in the wrong place. And the cash gift was written on what we call first death. So when you've got a couple, the cash gift was due to come out of his estate before everything else went to his wife.
Oh, gosh.
And we would have that conversation with you as a client about when you want certain things to happen, and we'd talk you through and make sure that you're understood and make sure you're happy. It was clear that this gentleman knew what they wanted to achieve, and his family said as much, but the way the will was actually drafted meant that now all this money was due to the grandchildren. The problem was he'd also not updated his will, because when he first wrote it, apparently he had 3 grandchildren and he wanted £20,000 to go to each of them. But when he passed away, there was 8 grandchildren. So now there's £160,000 got to come out of the estate to the grandkids. But of course, the main asset in the estate was the house.
The house.
So that's going to mean the selling of the house to make the cash gifts, and that's not what they wanted.
No,
he's not wanting to make his wife homeless to
live
give
in the house,
But we would have talked to him about the fact we can put cash gifts in both of your wills, because we don't know which one of you is going to die first, or therefore which one's going to die second. But we'll make sure that cash gift is only paid once and is paid after you've both passed away. The double danger for that couple, he'd passed away, the will that he'd written for his wife as well mirrored his. So if she passed away with that will, there was going to be another £160,000.
Oh, gosh.
Because they'd not written it to protect it only being paid
But that
once.
would be so easy when you don't actually know what,
terminology, how to write it down.
I'm conscious that may have sounded like a lot of waffle.
No.
In our heads, because we do it every day, that's quite obvious to us, but we don't expect the general...
Well, like you say,
in the same way a mechanic probably wouldn't expect me to know what a big end is. I don't know what I don't
know where you got that from, Ian.
Do you know, I only know because I remember a really old car that my dad had, and we were on a holiday trip to Whitby, and there's this little ticking noise, and I remember my dad saying, "Oh, the big end's gone." And as a child thinking, "What's that?" And by the time we turned up at the caravan site in Whitby, we sounded like a tank rolling in. But that shows you the lack of knowledge I have about an engine, that I went to a childhood memory of, I think there's something called a big engine in an engine. That might even be wrong, but you can only know what you know. So it does come full circle to a serious point. If you're watching this thinking, I'll do it myself, please don't. Ask Charlotte to do it. We'll ensure our work, we'll guarantee that it's right and it will work, and we'll take the liability and responsibility if it goes wrong. And touch wood, we've never had a will fail.
And it's only £99 on this offer that you've got, which is... You don't even have to pay £99 today. You've got 4 interest-free payments, £24.75 on your first of 4 interest-free payments. We talked about a government will, which is the rules of intestacy. Now, this is what happens if you don't have a will. It automatically gets put in place.
Yeah, this is the default position we have. Go on, you take it.
Listening to your voice, I'm joking.
I'll be honest, I was boring myself.
Please
Yeah, so-
take over, Charlotte. Please.
I'll do everyone a favour. No, I'm joking. Yeah, there is what's called a government will. So a lot of people don't realise if you haven't put your own will in place, you have actually got a will,
Yeah.
which is called the rules of intestacy, but we call it the government will. So you can see it on the screen there. It's just a list of yes or no questions, and it was done back in 1925, and it's been changed
100 years old.
yeah, and it's been changed minimal since then.
Right.
And obviously back then you had
Life was so different.
absolutely. You probably saw more the standard married couple, 2 children, and that was it. But, you know, we speak to loads of clients now that could be on their second, third marriage. They could have children from previous marriages and children together. And the rules of intestacy or government will doesn't meet the requirements for that. It's a standard, are you married or in a civil partnership? Yes or no. Do you have children? Yes or no. So it doesn't personalise it to any individual at all. It doesn't account for gifts, who you want to be your executors, all the benefits that you see within a will. You're losing all
It's
of
just
that.
standard yes, no questions.
Yeah, it's not
control.
personalised to anyone, and it's not your choice.
No.
And with families now being mixed, what does happen then? Because I know so many families that are a mixed family, and you
Second
don't even call
marriages.
yourself stepbrothers
Yeah.
and stepsisters because you
No,
live as
yeah.
a family. So you see yourself as a family. What would happen if somebody died? Where does it go wrong? that
Yeah, so let's say we've got a husband and wife, and husband's got a son and wife's got a daughter. On first death, the first 322,000 will pass to each other. So let's say, for argument's sake, husband passes away and it all goes to wife.
Okay.
At that point, if wife passes away, the question is, do you have children, yes or no? It will then go down the bloodline
So it'll only
to wife's
recognise-
daughter.
Right.
Absolutely, so it doesn't account for stepchildren. So in that scenario, you're in a family unit that you've brought up these children probably from a young age, potentially. You see them as your own. But if you've not put that will in place, the government will only accounts for bloodline. So if you've got, in that scenario, wife's inheritance has gone to her daughter, her stepson is disinherited. Which,
And that must cause such family
Oh, it'd be
upset.
heartbreaking.
yeah,
I mean,
massively, because
People
neither
in
of
such
those...
a terrible place already.
Absolutely, neither of those would have wanted that to happen. You know
No,
that.
no.
You know, as parents, you cover your whole family scenario, but in a will you can stipulate who you do and don't want to inherit. But unfortunately,
Sorry, Charlotte, we've had people phone us up and heartbroken because they're like, Dad fell out with son 30 years ago. They've had nothing to do with him. And Dad was really clear to us that he's not to inherit anything.
yeah.
But we've been told that he's entitled to an equal share. And we obviously asked the question, did your dad make a will? And they're like, no, but he told us he didn't want his son to inherit. And of course, we live in a land of law. So if you don't make a will, you pass away, you're said to have died intestate, which means you get to give the government will. And if you've got children, the default position is those children inherit in equal shares. So the only way, for me, it's all about control. The only way
You
to
write it
control,
down,
is make your own will. The second that you attest a will correctly, the second that it's dated, signed and witnessed correctly, you've done away with the government will because you've got your own will. So there's two things happening. It's not just making your own will. By making your own will, you're pushing the government will to one side.
Yeah.
If you don't make your own will, if you don't take advantage of this show tonight, you're effectively accepting the government will, knowing that it won't choose your executors for you, knowing that it doesn't care about what age your children inherit, knowing that if you've got underage children that you've not named guardians, if there's specific gifts, you can't leave specific gifts.
Even
It
funeral
doesn't care.
requests.
Because it's
I
not
hadn't even
personal.
thought of things like that. There's so much that you can put into a will.
Yeah, and it's
Even
yours.
who looks after your pet or...
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you want
yeah,
to give
pets
to
are
pets.
massive, aren't they?
Yeah, more important
Some
than
people
children
go- some
sometimes.
people go, everything equally to the kids. Now let's talk about the dog.
Yeah, they do.
Really?
Yeah. They're like children, aren't they,
Yeah,
for a lot of
of
people?
course they are.
Yeah, so again, the point you were saying is it's just your choice. It's your
yours.
document.
It's your control
We can't
over
stress that
everything,
enough
isn't
to make that first step today and just have that half an
And
hour
I think without
conversation.
sitting down and talking to you, there's all those things that you wouldn't have even thought
No.
about.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's a weight lifted, because you
Yeah.
didn't actually realise what you probably did want to achieve or what you could achieve within a will. And once you
Yeah.
realise what you've done, it's that, wow, I've actually done something really good today.
It's
Yeah.
not in the government's interest for us to make our own wills and take control as well, because if you speak to someone professional like Charlotte, she'll also be able to show you how you can take full advantage of all the tax allowances that are
Yeah.
available. I think it's predicted now that in the next financial year, the Treasury is expected to get something like £9.2 billion in inheritance tax revenue. And a lot of that is legitimately avoidable just with correct planning.
Yeah.
But of course, if you don't plan, you can't tax plan neither.
No.
So
we don't know
Again,
that
we don't know.
information.
no. And look, this is your last act on planet Earth. But actually, it's not your last act on planet Earth if it's not your will. The last thing that happens to your estate is governed by a set of rules that was created in 1925. So the last people that control what happens to you and your family is the government. No, don't let that happen.
No.
They have enough control over us our entire life. Don't let your last act on planet Earth be someone else's. Make it be yours. Do something amazing for you. Do something amazing for your family. The hardest thing is sending that text this morning or phoning one of Charlotte's colleagues now. But I promise you won't regret doing that. And then you're going to ensure that everything you worked hard for is going to end up going where you want it to go at a time that you want it to go there, because it'll be your wishes. It's your will, not the government will. Please don't pass away with the government will.
No.
It would be so upsetting, and obviously I don't know what happens when we pass, but I'd like to think that Dad watches down on us. I see those white feathers and all those signs, and you like to think that. Can you imagine looking down on your family? They're all falling out because they know what you wanted to happen. You know, they know what you wanted to happen to everything. You told them, but because you hadn't done a professional, you know, law-abiding
legally
will,
binding document is what you need.
none of that is happening. It's gone to the government will, and everything that they wanted to happen is not happening. Because that government will, I can't look at that government will and find that be right for anybody, any family.
Well, it's out of date, isn't it? It's 100 years old.
It's a
And it's
generic. It's a generic.
And it still
generic
couldn't
position.
be
Yeah.
right.
Great way to
We'd
describe
still be individual, but I mean, we're so different to 100 years
Well,
ago now.
that's the thing is whilst it was never really, there has to be something in
yeah,
place. There has to be a
that
mechanism,
does, yeah.
otherwise it'd be anarchy, wouldn't it? It'd be
Yeah.
just like, well, what happens? And you can't have people choosing for themselves. So that's why it really is simple as option A, option B. Option A is you pass away with the government will. Option B is you make your own. Well, go option B every single time.
Yeah.
But you're quite right, 100 years ago, it was probably less destructive to families because it would have been more unusual for people to get divorced and remarried. It's actually, you know better than me because you deal with our clients every single day, it's the norm now, I suspect, that when we're talking to people, they're either not choosing to get married and or they're on their second or third marriage.
Yeah.
The rules of intestacy, therefore, if it wasn't quite right when we didn't have blended families, it's shocking now. And it always sounds melodramatic when I say it rips families apart, but it generally does that. Because it follows your bloodline and because it's related to your marital status and doesn't care about any wishes or anything personal, it will literally rip that family apart at the worst time. Because, you know, grief's in the mix, someone that you love's passed away, and then you find out, oh, actually, that person is inheriting that they didn't want to inherit, or that person isn't inheriting that they did want to inherit. It's
A couple of stories come to my head. One story is a gentleman who did try to write his own will, and he had been looked after by a neighbour for years.
Oh,
and he wanted
yes, you told us
everything
that
to go to his neighbour. So he didn't have family as such, but he wanted it all to go to his neighbour. But sadly, again, because it wasn't written correctly, that again didn't happen. His wish didn't happen.
I think he'd scribbled something down. It wasn't signed it. I think he thought it was enough. He almost wrote it on, you know, a notepad.
sort of, yeah.
You know, I want it all to go to Bob. It was literally that, but not signed, not dated, not witnessed. And obviously just assumed that, oh, I've made my wishes clear. Everyone knows that me and Bob are, you know, lifelong friends and this is where I want it to go. And I think, if memory serves, because he obviously, unfortunately, died without a valid will in place, the property has ended up going to a second cousin in Canada, who it's
They probably never known of
doesn't
or
even
met
know him or
no,
visit
so
him
it's been tracked down the bloodline effectively and follows the rules of intestacy, which is, you know, immediate family, then it goes to distant family, and it's ended up. Everyone who knows him knew
Bob should have had it.
this is what he wanted to happen, but unless it's documented, it doesn't happen. And this is where I think people get really upset and frustrated because it's almost like, but we don't understand.
It's not
Everyone
right.
knows, but we live in a world, we live in a country of law, and so there's a legal process to follow. If you don't create your own legal process with your own legally binding document and make it personal to you, the government will give you their will, and that's why we do these shows. We don't want you to have the government.
And it's so important for everyone to have a will. This is the other story that always sticks in my mind, which is the single gentleman, because I do think a lot of us might think, well, I haven't got a family, you know, I haven't been married, I'm not second married, I haven't got children, so I don't really, I'll wait until I get married.
Yeah.
And this gentleman, he'd done very well in life, but died quite young and
yeah.
unexpectedly, didn't he?
Yeah, it stuck with me because it was told by his surviving mum, which is heartbreaking enough. You know, no parent should have to bury the child. But yeah, he was relatively young from memory. He was only in his 40s, but a successful medical consultant from memory. Died unexpectedly and suddenly. Excuse me. The backstory to it, why I saw this actually on TV was when he was born, the gentleman who passed away, when he was born, his dad basically left the family and left his wife to bring up the 2 boys on his own. He was never heard from again, so there was no birthday cards, there was no contact basically. And of course, fast forward 40 odd years, when he suddenly passed away, questions asked, did he have a will? The answer was no. So he's died intestate, and that's a series of yes/no questions, as we've explained.
So that's the government will.
That's the government will. So he hasn't made his own will, he's got the government will. The first question that's asked of the person that's passed away is, were they married or in a civil partnership? The answer for this gentleman was no, he was single. The next question was, did he have any children? The answer was no, he didn't have any children. So the next question the government will ask is, do you have parents? The answer, of course, was yes, and the outcome is his estate was shared equally between his parents. So his mom's then had to track down her ex-husband who walked out all those decades ago to say, our son, who basically have not been involved in his life at all, you're entitled to half of everything that he had.
I mean, I know that story, but it just turns your stomach. It makes my hairs go on end.
Well, people get angry about, well, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. And if you've got like a moral compass, you kind of think, well, that doesn't.
It's wrong.
But this is the law, and the law isn't always right, but the law is the law, and people don't always understand it. That's why it's so important to make a will, regardless of your own situation, because it's your will.
And it's who else it affects, you know, when you're gone, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it might not necessarily be that you want to actually leave it to family. It could be friends or even charities.
Yeah.
Again, it's your document. It's where you want it to go.
And we were saying it might be where you don't want it to go.
Exactly. Exclusions. You might be estranged from somebody.
So you can say, I don't want my brother to inherit anything. I haven't seen him for 40 years. Why would I want that?
Yeah.
It's your. This is the whole point of this. Is it's your document. So we don't tell you what you're putting in it. You tell us what you want in, and we tell you the best way to do it.
Right.
And at the end of it, you get a document that's right for you. Excuse me. And we will only prepare your document for you once you're 100% happy with the instructions you've given us, and you're 100% happy with the advice that we've given you. And then we'll make sure that you've got it, that you understand it, and more importantly, we'll make sure that it's signed, dated and witnessed correctly. Because until that happens, it's not a valid document. So we hold your hand through the whole process and make sure that you've got your document. And the great news is, the second you put your signature on it, bye-bye government will.
Yeah.
Because then you've got your will, and your last act on planet Earth is going to be your last act. That's why it's so important. This isn't just a flimsy bit of paper where you say, I want to leave everything to my son and daughter. It's so much more than that. It's so much more important than that.
And the other really fabulous thing is there's lots of things that you won't think about. And when you sit down with a member from Simpler Law, and they do become a friend, you don't need any information really. You need to know you just want to write a will. And through a conversation just like we're having today,
it's very relaxed.
They sort of get the information from you. They'll make you think of things you hadn't even thought about. You perhaps haven't even thought about what's going to happen to your dog if you die, or the family heirloom that you want to stay, wants to be in the family under the family name. You need to pass that on to, you know, your son, or you know, someone that's got the surname. There's so many little things that you won't think about. I think sometimes we think we haven't got anything, but you do. The house you live in, the car that you've got, but it is your pets.
It's those personal things as well as the monetary
what you happen to your funeral arrangements.
That's massively important.
And I think that's
personal is key.
Yeah.
Personal.
Yeah, I think that's such a help to family if you've got no idea, because I think it's a conversation you don't want to have. I don't want to sit down and say, you know, Mum, what do you want to happen when you? Because I don't want to think about that. But if that's written in a will that they want to be cremated or buried,
that's why it's selfless.
Yeah.
And then you forget that you've done it.
Yeah, put it to the side, carry on with life. You've done it.
Yeah, it's so true. It's such a relief. What you've done is given the best gift you could give to your family.
100%.
Because you could be, if you pass, looking down, watching everybody fall out, because you didn't write down. They knew what you wanted, but it wasn't written down legally. And if it's not written down legally, there is a will for you, and that's the government will.
Go to that government will, which is what you wouldn't want to happen. It's so important. And do you know what? Tonight you're making that first step. You're just setting the ball in motion. And we've got fabulous offers with Simpler Law, professional company who work in this field and this field alone, estate planning. It's so important that you use a company like Simpler Law, and with these offers that we've got for you, that's why you should take advantage right now. So if you want to take advantage of the family and estate will, it should be £209 on the suggested retail price. It's down to £99.
I thought it'd be so. You think it'd be really expensive, wouldn't
That's
it?
what
Have
stopped
this
us doing it
professional
initially,
advice.
isn't it?
Yeah, £99 tonight, and only up until Friday at 5 p.m. Have you got this deal? You're saving £110. Do it tonight. All you're doing is securing that price. You're not answering any questions at all. And do you know the wonderful thing is, you can also split that cost over 4 interest-free payments. So £24.75 is all you spend 4 times. And think about what you spend on coffee, what you spend on takeaways, what you spend on fuel. This is actually making sure what you want to happen to your belongings is actually going to happen. And lasting power of attorney, we will go back to that, because I think we'll all know what a will is. But lasting power of attorney, I think, unless you've sadly been in a situation or know someone that's been in a situation and they needed a lasting power of attorney, I think that's the only time you really know about that. It's very important to have that in place, and we'll go into more detail. Should be £349, but you've got a great saving of £150 and £199, and then you split that cost to those 4 payments of £49.75. Our takeaway is always more than that.
It is, yeah, takeaway for 2. And we don't go anywhere special, believe me. The best offer of all, though, is the will and the lasting power of attorney. That combination, that's where the best value is. Should be 558, it's down to 269, and the 4 interest-free payments is 67.25 on your first of 4 payments.
And do you know the other really good thing is, if you're thinking, right, I'm going to do the will, yes, I've got to do that will, and you secure that deal, and then tomorrow you watch a little bit more and you think, oh, I wish I'd done that lasting power of attorney as well. As long as you've secured the deals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That I know the team will very happily allow you to do the lasting power of attorney. And, you know, so just make sure you get in touch. This is the biggest thing. And get in touch right now. Don't put it off. We put everything off, and it's so easy just to secure the deal tonight. You don't need to know the answer to any questions. You just need to either jump onto the website, simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV. That's your first step. You've done it. You're actually going to get something done this year. As all your New Year's resolutions failed already,
out the window, yeah.
We're still in January, and that's the first step. It's actually allowing you to make sure you do get that will done this year, or that lasting power of attorney. Or actually, the team are on the phone.
Yeah, the team are there right through till 3 a.m. Just call the number 0333 600 2600 is the phone number. You don't need any information. You don't need any documents with you. All they're going to do is secure those offers for you. And ongoing, they'll arrange the perfect time for you to make the appointment to get that will in place.
That's the nice thing. You can sort that out the right day, the right time. All you're doing is making sure you get the deal, because the prices do go up on Friday at 5. Or text the word will. This is the easiest way to do it. You don't have to speak to anybody. And so text WILL to 66777. And that means you've secured the deal. You can go to bed if you like, because that is sorted. And that's the easiest way. I love doing all the competitions by texting. It's so quick and easy. And sometimes you just don't want to talk to anybody, do you? You've actually just secured all those prices by texting that word will.
And you don't have to worry about the team ringing you back first thing. They won't ring you before 11 o'clock this morning. So if you're having a lay-in in the morning, you don't have to worry. The appointment and the call won't come
do
through
it
too
now.
soon.
Though
Yeah,
the price
really
is
important.
until Friday. Where are we now? What day is it?
I don't know.
Thursday morning.
It's Thursday.
No, I
So it's
don't ask me.
Wednesday. It's Thursday. So until tomorrow at 5 o'clock, you know, it's so busy, aren't we? Life is so hectic. It's going to be Saturday, isn't it, or Sunday? And you'll think, oh gosh, I missed that. I should have done that deal.
And we're right at the end of January, like you were saying. It's still time to make that first step, isn't it? That New Year planning can still be there for you.
And don't worry.
end.
Sorry, Sean. Don't worry if we miss each other by Friday, because if that text has come in tonight, we'll have recorded that you've secured
Great.
it
So
tonight.
it's
Yeah.
secured,
secured.
even if you get back in touch next week.
Yeah, because sometimes we get a lot of...
course, big response.
The problem is not doing it before Friday, because did I tell you about the holiday we missed out?
Oh, sorry, Sean. I thought...
Did we know about the holiday?
Yeah.
See what you've done, you've prodded in it.
Break between Christmas and New Year, between Christmas and New Year. We were going to go away for a weekend, actually, in the UK, but to a really nice hotel. The deal was amazing. I was like, should we book it? Should we book it?
Don't
should
blame
we book
me.
it? We can do it, can't we? We can do it with work. Should we book it? Should we?
Your way a bit.
We didn't book. Then we were like, yeah, let's book
Stop hitting me.
So we booked. I went on to book it. It was virtually still in my basket, but the price had gone up £600.
That's and the point is, if
and we would have gone. Did we go away between?
No,
Christmas
we
and
didn't.
New Year? No, because I wasn't going to pay £600 more. So do it now, so you know you've got those prices, and then you can have the appointment when it's right for you. If we'd have booked it, we would have had a lovely time.
We've changed. We booked a flight last night, or the night before.
Yes, yeah. Sean went, actually, and that was me, wasn't it? Sean went, oh, we'll leave it till tomorrow. I said, no, we're doing it right now.
It was good.
We're
Big
going,
turnaround.
We're going, we're doing it, and we're doing it.
Big
We are.
turnaround. That's good. And that's how we're planning the year. And that's how we'd advise you to do it. Get started. Take that first step.
That's the hardest thing.
And this is so much more important than a hotel and a holiday or a flight. This is planning for you and for your family. Now, we are going to talk about lasting power of attorney now. And this is a term that I think people have heard of, Charlotte, but a lot of people aren't sure what it means, what it is.
No, because I think with a will, as you said previously, it's inevitable. You can need to use a will. With powers of attorney, these documents you hope you never need, but you put them in place should the worst happen. So if you lose your capacity, so you can't make your own decisions, whether it's through ill health, it could be something like dementia, it could be a freak accident. But if you've lost that power to make your own decisions, powers of attorney are where you nominate that person or those people that you'd like to step into your shoes and become you and make those decisions on your behalf.
So somebody you really trust, because there's two types, isn't there? There's financial lasting power of attorney. So you'd want someone that you really trust to take over your finances.
Yeah, so a lot of clients would choose spouse or partner and children as well, but it could be a friend. But again, this is choice. It's up to you and who you trust that would be able to actually manage that for you. You can have the same people on the financial and the health, you can have different, because you might think,
okay,
you know, my daughter's really savvy, she'll be really good managing the money, but actually my son probably would be better at making decisions about my health. So we'd have that conversation with you to find the best outcome.
So with the financial one, let's take a look at some of the things that you can control, if you like, and you're handing over your decision making, aren't you?
Yeah, so on the power of attorney, you're actually called the donor because you're donating that power, your voice essentially, to your attorney. So you can see on the list there with the financial document, they can access your bank accounts, they can claim your pensions, claim your benefits, pay your bills, because these things don't stop because you've lost your capacity.
And even though you were a husband or a wife or a daughter that looked after your parents, the bank wouldn't care about that. You wouldn't be able to do any of those things. So I think sometimes in our heart we think, oh, well, they'll know that I look
it's that
after.
hope again, isn't it? It's that assumption.
Assumption,
yeah, you call up any institution, the first thing they're going to say is, are you the account holder? And they'll go through data protection. You say no, that's it. They're not going to have that conversation with you. So if you've lost your capacity, you're actually more vulnerable. The guards are even higher up there at that point. So, yeah, unfortunately, not going to be able to do any of those things. But especially property, if you've got property, you might have rental properties, rental income still coming in, you've still got to pay your own household bills, you might need to sell a property. You can't do
that was on that list.
Things.
If you need to go into a care home and you need to pay for that care home, you have got none of that control for.
No, and a lot of people wouldn't realise you might actually own your property, well, most of the time jointly with a partner or a spouse. And if one of you's lost your capacity, you can't do anything with that property because you both need to give permission.
Oh, wow.
So if you've lost capacity, you can't give that voice. Yeah, you can't do anything with the property. So this is the advice we'd give you.
What do you do if you haven't got a lasting power of attorney then?
So
Because obviously you've got to pay these bills, you've got to sort these things
out. So this is why it's so important to do now, because if you haven't put the power of attorney in place and you have lost your capacity, unfortunately it is too late to then put that document in place. So the only option you've got then is to apply through what's called the Office of Public Guardian for a deputyship, which essentially allows you to become a power of attorney, but the cost and the time to actually do that.
The process of itself.
Yeah, and that's also relying on the right person to step forward. It might not actually be the person you'd have initially chosen.
Oh,
it could be an estranged child, for example, because the courts decide that for you. It's not your choice. You've lost
you have to apply something called the court of protection.
So anybody can step
did I
forward
say
and say,
You did
Guardian.
say
Sorry, that's my...
I was just going to.
Sorry, I just thought then as well. Sorry, Court of Protection. Office of Public Guardian is later down the
I
line.
spelled
So
will wrong. I shouldn't worry.
yeah,
I quite like that. We might use that on the next show. Takes the word meal.
I had
when you said
a lot
it
of
then.
eyes. A lot of eyes in my will.
WWI.
it's all right. We can both go insane together. It's fine.
This is why we make such a good team.
Funnily enough, these two institutions play very different roles. The Office of Public Guardian is where the lasting power of attorney has to be registered before
Yeah.
it can be used.
Right.
And obviously, it's your document and it gets registered and your attorneys can act. And it's up to you when you register that. You register it straight away. You can choose to make sure it's all signed, dated and witnessed correctly, which is the important thing to make sure that it's,
Right.
for want of a better description, good to go.
In place,
Yeah.
right.
If you haven't got a lasting power of attorney, and we often misspeak by saying you have to, it's not you, of course, because you've lost capacity. It's someone that, and you don't know who that's going to be. You hope, again, that it's going to be someone that you would have chosen for yourself. It's those people that then have to apply for what's called a deputyship order through the Court of
And
Protection.
we briefly saw all those costs, which if we
Horrific.
could kindly see them again, because the costs are...
Well, it's over £400 just to apply to the court.
And you've got to find this, because obviously you
Yeah.
can't use your loved one's money because you can't
Because you
touch
can't
it.
access it exactly.
So we've got to find all this money beforehand. Can you talk us through all these costs?
So you have to put through an application fee with the application form. Now, the Court of Protection application form itself is horrific. So these costs are assuming that you're doing this yourself.
That you can manage to do it yourself.
So the application fee is £408. That's steadily increasing year on year. There's an assessment fee because basically the court are there to assess that you're the right person to...
So they're assessing you, right?
Yeah. There's potentially a hearing fee. They're going to cost £494 if there needs to be a hearing. And then there's an ongoing supervision fee, which was shown at £320 there. Now, various things this can vary. And sometimes the court will even ask you, as the person applying to look after them, to put your own money down as a bond. Almost to... It can be very prohibitive. But whilst that's, in my opinion, horrific already, the cost is astronomical. I actually think it's the time it takes that's worse, because there are backlogs at the court and because of the process. And it's been overhauled a number of times, but the Court of Protection is still taking anywhere up to a year to actually get approvals for deputyships.
And what if your loved ones died in that?
That's the
And
awful-
at
that's
this
the awful-
point, you
that's the
want to
awful
be
thing.
with your loved one,
Yeah,
don't
of
you? You
course
don't
you
want to
do.
be
You don't want
chasing,
to be,
Yeah, exactly.
chasing the court.
Sorting paperwork. And trying
The
to-
awful thing is you're hamstrung by the whole situation. So again, you're back to this selfless act. Now, it's more than selfless with a lasting power of attorney, because you know that you've chosen the people who are going to look after you, so that you've done something for yourself. But actually what you've done for them is mean that a really bad situation doesn't get worse. And, you know, sometimes we'll speak to a couple and it's quite evident that one of the couple is more hands-on with the finances perhaps than the other. So certainly if we're talking about the financial side of it, the worst thing that can happen sometimes is the person who doesn't deal with the finances is the one that's okay. The person that did deal with the finances is the one that's incapacitated. So now you've kind of got a triple whammy that they don't know where to start, there's no one to turn to for help, and they haven't got the power to turn for help anyway.
No.
So then they have to go to the Court of Protection, and then they have to wait this year-long period, and inevitably they end up using professionals and the fees skyrocket.
Go higher and higher.
It's just awful. Whereas if that person had made a lasting power of attorney, they register it with the Office of Public Guardian, and they've got then full autonomy. They've been donated that power. It's like, right, okay,
Get on with everything.
yeah, what do I need to do now? And then they can care for that person that's been thrown that curveball. If you had a crystal ball and you could see your life mapped out in front of you, and
Don't need that.
and you were never thrown a curveball, then of course you don't need it. But there's a reason that we insure things like boilers, we'll insure televisions, we'll insure phones. And I want to be really clear, a lasting power of attorney isn't an insurance policy, but it can be thought of in a similar vein. It's a what-if document. If you had that crystal ball and you could see life throw you a curveball in the future, you'd do this not just for yourself, but more importantly for your family, because they're going to be the ones that have got to take care of you, but you can give them that power immediately.
Yeah.
Without it, you're making a really bad situation even worse.
And it's so good. We actually did this for Mum with Simple Law, before Simple Law actually worked with us here on Shop on TV. And you made it so easy. And I hate anything to do with the law. I just feel a bit
just
daft
afraid
and
of
ask
it all,
the wrong
aren't you?
question.
It's unknown, that's
yeah,
why.
You know, that I'm not going to understand
It's
what
not
they're
what
saying.
you do.
you actually sat down, and I did it alongside Mum. We did a video call, and the two ladies we dealt with were fantastic. Became friends, really.
Yeah.
And though we were worried to death to actually do it, in just a few minutes, you had us so relaxed. We didn't need any information because it was just sitting down chatting, and you virtually talked every bit of information out of us, so we knew exactly.
You've got all the answers. Yeah, it's just asking the right
and
questions.
you've got the right questions.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it's just a conversation, like you say.
And we'd only discovered about the lasting power of attorney, the financial lasting power of attorney, through illness, and we realised that it was something we needed to get. I didn't know when we spoke to you there's a second lasting power of attorney. When you told us about it, I was like, this is just as important, or even more important than the financial side.
Yeah, it's health and welfare, so it's more of an emotional side to the document. So again, you're donating your voice to whoever you choose, let's say it's children, and those children can decide where you're living. So if that daughter or son wants you to live at home with them, they can make that choice. If you need to go into a care home, they can decide which care home that is. They can even decide who's visiting you at that care home. So you might have an estranged sibling, for example, that you don't want to see, that only your loved ones are going to know that, and they can actually make sure that that's in place for you. And even as little, it sounds little, but it's not, it's important, but what you're eating, what you're wearing, again, your loved ones are going to be the only people that know that. We said earlier about being a vegetarian.
Yeah.
If you go into a care home, no one's going to know that you're a vegetarian, apart from your loved ones. So by giving them that power to be your voice, they can make sure that whilst you can't make your own decisions, they can do it for you.
My best friend was she was knocked down by a car, and without lasting power of attorney,
it's all the real personal things, isn't it?
Dealt with all the things that were so important, especially the welfare side and the health side of things, because she's been in a care home since, and she is vegetarian, and it was so important that carried on.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for you and your family, I think.
Absolutely, yeah,
definitely.
And I think with these documents as well, a lot of clients that we speak to, if they have heard of the documents, have either seen a friend or family member have them in place and the benefits of it, or unfortunately they've seen them not and have to apply through the Court of Protection.
Right.
It's control again, isn't it?
It's
a personal thing, and you're controlling who's going to make those decisions for you. And I know you're quite right when we say things like, oh, it sounds really trivial, what you wear, what you eat, where you live. And that's because when you take that for granted, we wake up in the morning, we throw the quilt back and we get on with our lives. If that day came where you didn't throw the quilt back, who steps into your shoes?
Goodness,
And if it's the wrong person with the wrong ideals, that can be horrific. Or worse still...
Or not your ideals, that's the thing.
Yeah, your wishes are there.
And, we get that a lot, what you said about when you were doing your mum's lasting power of attorney with us, and people, I think, understand money makes the world go around, so the obvious choice is let's make sure that the money side's taken care of. But it's such a personal thing, the health and welfare, that it's arguably as important or more important, but obviously for clearly different reasons. There's a practical one, if you like, and then there's a personal one. And it's called health and welfare for that reason. It's all about how you're cared for. And it just means, again, that you've donated your voice to someone that can say, no, Mum wouldn't want that, or Mum wouldn't want this, or actually, do you know what, I want Mum to live with me. We've got loads of horror stories where people have tried to stop the parents from going into the care system, but they haven't got the voice to do it.
Oh, God.
And there's that assumption that, well, it's my mum. But if you think about it, what power do you have as a child over your mum?
No.
You've got no power over them when they've got capacity. You've got even less when they haven't got capacity. But if your mum makes a lasting power of attorney and says, I want my daughter to be my attorney, they've donated that power to you, so you can say, no, Mum wouldn't want that, or Mum is going to come and live with me. Now, there's still a duty of care. In situations like that, if someone's going to be at home and cared for by the family, there's a duty of care to make sure that's right for the client. But at least you've given, that's an option. You've given that person that power. Without these documents, no one's got any power, hence the call lasting power of attorney.
And though we're talking now, I often talk about Mum and saying, everyone should know I'd want to look after Mum, but obviously it'd be taken away from me with law. Anyone that hasn't got any family, and we've had a few emails in tonight, it can be a friend, can't it? It doesn't have to be a relative. No. It's just somebody you trust.
It's your choice. So you've got that power. Again, it could be one person, it could be multiple people. It's your choice, which is what's so important. And once you've done that document, again, you can put it to a side.
It was such a relief and peace of mind. We did both documents, and honestly, though we'd worried ourselves to death about doing the, actually sitting down and doing it, because we worry about everything. It was Simpler Law just made it so easy. Well, I say Simpler Law, it was actually the lady we spoke to. They become friends, really. But once it's done, that's it. I don't think about it now. Mum doesn't think about it now. It's just there.
It's that weight, like
and
you say,
if we
weight
need
lifted.
it, it's there. If we
Exactly.
don't, it was just a weight off our shoulders.
And it's also about getting it right, because we always refer to the way it was signed and witnessed, because you talk through that, don't you?
That is the important thing with the lasting power of attorney. It's personal, and it might be time bound. It might be personal health issues that mean that it's important to register it straight away, because these documents can't be used unless they're registered with something called the Office of the Public Guardian. Now, they may charge a registration fee depending on your personal circumstances, but the most they will charge you is £82. The least is free. But you compare that to the thousands you have to pay to the Court of Protection, you'd pay the £82 all day long. But you can only pay the £82 if you've got the document correct, and that's what we help you do. So it's really important that it's signed, dated and witnessed correctly and in the correct order, and we hold your hand through that whole process. That's really important, because again, sometimes the heartbreaking thing is people have tried to do it themselves, or they've got the documents, they've not followed it through with the signing, or they've put in conditions that have made it restrictive, and it's, again, not quite what it's meant to be. A lasting power of attorney is designed to make it as easy as possible for your family to step into your shoes. And again, we'll help you and guide you through all of that, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's a combination of both. Because again, it's your document, it's not ours, it's yours.
And you make sure it's correct, and you did that with us, because though we'd followed everything you'd said, and we could watch things on the internet as well, you know, it talked you through how to sign it, what order you sign it in, and we'd done all of that. Unbeknown to us, a dear friend who had lived next door to her all my life, she'd lived next door, and I'd babysat her children. You know, they'd been a huge part of our lives. We got her to witness and sign, but we didn't know that the name we'd called her all these years was her middle name. And so when she sort of signed and then put her name, it was all back to front, and you noticed
so
that.
It's different, signed as one name and printed as another.
Let's get it right,
Yeah, absolutely. We offer a free validation service for that reason. So, as we say, the hardest part is just making the choice today to call or text or email, however you want to do it. Take that first step, because once you've done that, we'll lead you all the way through until that document is signed in place.
Brilliant.
And you don't have to believe us and like our personal story, because we dealt with Simpler Law way before they worked with us here on Shop on TV. There are so many 5-star reviews.
Yeah, we're going to share some with you right now. This one from Dave. I completed my will today with Gemma. Gemma was very helpful and explained in detail through the steps, making it easier and less stressful to complete. The will was more complicated due to the requests I had, but Gemma had no issue completing this. How great is that? It tells you exactly what you want to hear.
And it's so nice when everyone sort of refers to names
The people
as well.
who they
the
deal
people
with,
they dealt with. They do become friends, really.
Yeah. Jean said, was rather nervous to begin with, but from the very beginning, every person I spoke to put my worries at rest. It was very simple procedure. I'll be recommending them to anyone I know who hasn't got a will yet. That's from Jean. Charlotte, when we do get in touch and we make that initial contact, do we deal with the same person throughout?
Yes, yeah. So once you've got a consultant, that'll be who you speak to. So they'll know obviously about you, you'll know about them. So you don't have any worries with regards to that. You can call anytime, email in.
Oh, that's fine.
We'll always get back to you.
Brilliant. So you deal with the same person. That's great, that continuity, isn't it?
It is. I know when Dad was in hospital, he had to get another doctor came and asked what's the matter with you. And he's like, you should know what's the matter with me. I'm in hospital. But to deal with the same person, they already know your story is so important, isn't it? You know. Let's
talk about the offers, because we're running out of time. We're live through till 3 a.m. We'll tell you how to get in touch, because that's really simple and easy. But the offers that Simpler Law have got for us, exclusive here at Shop on TV, are great reductions that we've got for you. So we'll start with the family estate will for you. £209 is the suggested retail price, down to less than £100, £99. You don't even have to pay that. Simpler Law are offering you 4 interest-free instalments, so just £24.75 on your first of 4 payments if you want to go for the will itself.
I bet that's like less than you spend on coffee, less than you spend definitely on petrol, less than you spend on a takeaway, and you've written your will It's your last gift to your family, and this is your New Year's resolution. We're still in January. This is your step to actually get things organised and get that will in place. We put things off for too long, and then all of a sudden it'll be next Christmas. Get your will done right now when it's this price, but only this price up until Friday at 5 o'clock. So we'll tell you how to get in touch. Do that tonight or this morning. Lasting power of attorney, we've just been going through that, and that's an incredible saving of £150, £199, and you've got 4 payments as well. You can split that cost, so £49.75 is the first of those 4 payments. Again, when you see the costs to try and do it, if you haven't got lasting power of attorney, we're talking thousands of pounds.
Yeah.
This is so affordable.
It really is. But the best offer, the best saving, is if you go for the will and lasting power of attorney. You've heard all the benefits for both of them as we've gone through the show. Should be £558 down to £269, but with those interest-free payments, again, it makes it really affordable. £67.25 on your first of 4 payments there.
Remember, do it now. The deal is only till Friday at 5 o'clock, and you might forget it'll be the weekend. You'll also, if you're the first 250 clients, get this fabulous book, What My Family Should Know. And this is a brilliant book. I said originally we should have this from birth, but that's far too early. We should have this from when you're working.
Record how many dummies you've got.
Absolutely. But I do think everybody should have this, because when somebody does pass, you've got to try and find all this information.
Yeah.
And I know for like mum, it'll be in boxes here, and there'll be a secret place here, and whereas all in one place. But actually now one of the most important things is the digital accounts. So passwords.
Yeah, your computer, your tablet, your social media account, your mobile phone, all those things can
It might be that you
recorded
need
there.
to get onto an iPad or something, or a tablet, because you need an email, because actually a lot of our things aren't postal now, they're on emails. Or perhaps it's personal photographs. You know, perhaps all the last Christmas photographs, they're all on Dad's tablet and no one can get on it. And we know this from a personal family member. No one could get on the tablet. Nobody knew the actual, you know, the password. And it wasn't until they were discussing it, we really need to get onto this tablet, that the little grandson said, I know the password because I played on Grandad's. Thank goodness. Yeah. You know, that was the absolute blessing. But that situation, if you haven't got the password, you can't get on it.
No, not at all. It's really easy to get in touch and take advantage of the offers. Like we say, these offers are time limited until close of business on Friday. So now is the time to get in touch and start the ball rolling. If you want to go straight to the website, simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV, then you'll get those exclusive offers we were just talking about.
Do it today, because you'll forget. It'll be Sunday and you've missed out on all the deals. And all you're doing, like Sean said, you're securing the deal, not discussing anything else. You don't need any information. Jump on the phone, the team is still there, and that's 0333 600 2600. Again, you don't need any information apart from that you know you want to write a will, you want your lasting power of attorney, you want these prices. So do it right now. The peace of mind you'll get from doing this is incredible. But the easiest way, and this is how I know we'd do it, is texting.
Yeah, just text the word will to 66777. You'll then be registered and the team will get back to you after 11 o'clock this morning, so they won't wake you up too early. And that's the easiest way. Text the word will, WILL, to 66777. You can also go through our website if you've used to shopping on our website, shopontv.co.uk. Scroll down to our on-screen partners and then just click on the Simpler Law logo, and it takes you through for this really simple form that you see here. Again, they won't get back in touch with you until after 11 o'clock, but you've secured the deal. Yeah. You've secured the offer.
And even if you're busy until perhaps later on in February, you can sort out the right time to sit down and chat. What you've done is made sure you've secured those prices, and you've taken that first step. It's that first step which is the hardest, isn't it? And once you've done that, it's all going to fall in place. And perhaps you wanted to declutter the house, you know, January, you're going to do it, and you haven't. Perhaps there's lots of New Year's resolutions, and you feel you've failed already because we're now heading towards February. This is still January. This is your New Year's resolution. You've just got it in.
You've made it.
And because you've taken that first step, it's going to get done.
You've started the ball rolling.
Makes such a difference.
And if it's a will or a lasting power of attorney, there's such important documents that we've talked you through.
Well, I think lots of people don't realise. Shall we go back to the will? Because if you've just joined us, I think perhaps the will is one of the, well, they're all, the will, lasting power of attorney, both so important. But I think a will is a good starting point, and I think for lots of us, we think, well, you know, I've been with Sean for 34 years. with mine's Sean's is
That'll
mine.
just happen, won't it?
Obviously, if one of us pass first, it'll go to our partner. But that wouldn't have happened at all if we hadn't have got a will. And if you're a blended family with children from different families, it won't work how you think. What you think happens doesn't happen. If you haven't got a legal will, sadly there is a will, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the government will, the laws of intestacy, and it just goes down a process of yes, no questions. We'll talk about it with Ian and Charlotte in just a moment. But you can see this is what happens, and it's not. It wouldn't be the plan that you would want.
Well, that's like over 100 years old, and one will for everybody can't be right, can it? How on earth can that be correct?
So when we look at it, it's not right for anybody. That's the thing. You need something that's bespoke, that's tailored, that's your wishes, and that's what you get with your own will. And you're getting it for £99 with Simpler Law, a professional company and this is all you deal with, isn't it, Ian? This is what you do.
Every single day, this is all we specialise in, so you don't come to us for anything else. We don't bother with divorces, boundary disputes, personal injury claims. But if it comes to you wanting to take control of everything that you worked hard for and making sure that it goes to the people you want it to go to, then you speak to someone like Charlotte or a member of her team. This is all we specialise in. Obviously, we offer a full range of private client legal services, but it's all aimed at estate planning.
Right.
Our group of companies manages over £600 million of assets for our clients because we're there to look after our clients and their beneficiaries. And the key thing and the reason we do these shows, we want people to take control, because I think there's lots of people who don't necessarily understand that if they don't make their own will, they get that government will.
No,
and therefore there's no control.
I think lots of people won't know that.
Well,
they'll think, oh, I told the kids, so the kids know what I want, so they'll tell everybody, and that's what will happen.
But sometimes even that knowledge isn't enough, because if you don't fully understand that the government will isn't going to work, it still doesn't jolt you into action.
Yeah.
I mean, if I meet people for the first time and they say, what do you do? I often just say I'm a will writer. And shock horror, they all say, oh, we've been meaning to make a will. I hit them with the obligatory, I've never heard that before. And they always promise me they're going to phone, and of course life gets in the way again. But I will just say to people, I say, look, do your own research if you want. Just Google the rules of intestacy, search up the rules of intestacy. You know, what we're showing here is absolutely factual. If you don't make your own will, there's a default will, the government will give you one. And then it's too late and you can't do anything about it. And it's not personal. It doesn't care about you. It's kind of understandable because there'd be anarchy if there wasn't a default position. But there are only two positions in the UK when you've passed away. You either passed away with your own will, which means you control what your last act is on planet Earth, or you pass away without a will, which means the government give you a will and it follows a series of yes-no questions that then decides where your estate's going to go. And you and your family have no say in that at all. And it's just not personal, it's awful. So in situations, certainly in today's society, it can literally rip families apart.
Of course it can.
Because it doesn't take into account like a, you know,
life is
family.
so much more complicated than, I mean, as I say, 100 years ago it wouldn't have worked for everybody, but it might have been a little bit better, because now we're remarried with children from different families. We're not married. There's lots of different situations.
Everyone's situation is different, isn't it?
And what would happen if say someone they're married with children from different families, they live as a family and they have done for years.
Yeah.
So they don't even see the children as stepchildren, or the children don't see each other as stepsisters or brothers. They're a family unit. What goes wrong with the government will if they haven't written a will?
So essentially it's just the yes-no answers that you're going through. So for demonstration, let's say we've got a husband and a wife. Husband's got a son and wife's got a daughter. The first question, if husband's passed away, is are you married or in a civil partnership? The answer is yes. So the first 322,000 will then pass over to the wife. But let's say that's the whole estate. Everything's now gone to the wife. Now, in that scenario, the wife's going to think, I'm going to protect both children, because most likely she's probably brought them up, you know, sees them as both children. But if wife then passes away, first question, are you married or in a civil partnership? No. So the second question is, do you have children? Yes, but that only equates for bloodline children. So in that scenario, wife's daughter is the one that inherits, and her stepson actually is disinherited. So you're actually taking a gamble with, in a way, who's going to pass away first as to whose child inherits, because it only equates for bloodline. And that family would never have wished for that to happen. No. And this is where you can see potential family breakups, because you're putting all that strain on one child. Are they going to give that other child the inheritance? It's just not what you would want from that.
A lot of families like that don't realise it's a lottery, that it's the surviving, it's the surviving parents' children that inherit. the first parents pass away, unfortunately, ultimately it's their children that aren't going to inherit. And when
you don't even think?
No, when you speak
You
to
wouldn't.
clients, in most cases, they want the children to be treated equally.
Of course.
You know, and like Charlotte said, almost as their children together. You know, they don't even define them as stepdaughter, stepson, stepbrother, stepsister. It's brother and sister. But the rules of intestacy, they have tried to review the rules of intestacy. It's just too complicated.
Yeah.
So it's just stayed exactly the same. The default position is what it is, and it's kind of like, well, we'll let the general public deal with it. But I'm a little bit of a cynic as well, because obviously if you don't deal with your own estate, then there's every chance that the government will be able to take advantage of you not taking advantage of all the tax allowances that are available. Because again, you can only know what you know. The inheritance tax revenue, I think in the last tax year, was something like £5.3 billion.
Wow.
And of course, you know the right way to deal with all of those sorts of
Yeah,
things.
there's different inheritance tax allowances around property, around, you know, there's things called spousal exemption. We can talk to you about all of that. And it's not complicated in any shape or form. You know, in a lot of cases, there might not be a tax liability. But if you're still listening to me at, is it 2:30, 3:15 in the morning?
Something like
If
that.
you're still listening to me at this time in the morning, you've not made your will and you're not sure about anything I'm talking about, there's a reason you're still listening to me. It's because you're probably thinking, I should make a will. This is risk-free. The hardest thing to do is to send that text this morning or to phone one of Charlotte's colleagues now. And when you speak to us and you do the consultation, if you're unhappy at the end of that consultation with the instructions you've given us or the advice that we've given you, just tell us that and we'll give you your money back.
Right.
It's zero risk to doing this. But I promise you, at the end of the consultation, you'll do what every other client does and go, I'm glad I got that out of the way.
Yeah,
I'm glad I put a tick in that box and now I'm just going to get on with the rest of my life, knowing that I've done that.
Yeah.
Rather than, we're all doing it. I'm the king of procrastination. I'll do that next week. I'll do that next week.
We do it
I'm always
twice,
starting my diet on a Monday.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And one Monday I might.
Yeah.
But
It's just the case of taking that first
Yeah,
step.
we put so many things off,
really,
don't we?
really important. I always struggle to emphasise just how important it is. Sometimes you want to put the entire UK population in our estate administration department and say, this is what happens when someone's passed away without a will.
Yeah.
And look what the family are having to go through. And this is what's happening with someone that actually just put their own will in place, just took half an hour out of their life to tell us what they wanted to do. And the contrast is stark.
Yeah, a lot of the
Absolutely
time,
massive.
our clients that come to us have seen that themselves through family or friends.
Yeah.
And that's why they thought, I actually need to put a will in place. And that's why these shows are so important, because we want everyone to be aware of that. And the importance of it being your choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the point. Everyone needs a will. Everyone's going to
Everyone,
use
yeah.
a will, aren't they?
Everyone's situation is unique. So every document we produce for our client, therefore, is unique. The government will is one size fits all. There's only 4 of us in the steward. It won't work for us 4.
No.
Charlotte's married. I'm married. Not together. She'll be glad to hear.
Very clear.
And as we've learned, you two have established you've been together for 34 years.
We've got
Yes, we
there.
got
But
it.
over the years, I've heard things like, and I'm sure you have, is, well, I'm sure you'll be okay because you've lived together for 2 years. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where did that come from?
Well, we presume
common,
that.
or we hear common law husband and
Yeah,
wife.
that's
It's like,
what-
well,
yeah.
that's not a legal position neither. And then I've heard someone say, oh, but when you've been together for 10 years, you've got rights. And I'm thinking, where's this stuff coming from? And it's often the pub quiz champion who said, oh, you don't need a will because
Don't
you've been
worry about
together.
that.
And
It
it's
is gossip, yeah.
and it's weird because sometimes someone will take the opinion of a friend or someone who's got absolutely no knowledge of this area at all over Charlotte's, who's actually trained in this area. And that's why we do these shows is, look, whatever you think or whatever you think you believe, I promise you, if you've not made your own will, then your wishes won't be carried out. Your wishes will be disregarded and your estate will be distributed according to the government will.
Yeah.
Please don't pass away with a government will. Let your last act on planet Earth be yours. Let it be your document and let your family know that you took care of them.
And everybody needs a will, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're not in a relationship, whether you haven't got children, perhaps you've just got a dog, you know, whether you think you've got nothing or you've got, you know, honestly, everybody needs a will. And the story that always, and I know I'd ask you to tell this story, the gentleman on his own that died in his 40s, because I do think, obviously I don't know how he was thinking, but if I was on my own, I'd think, well, what's the point? I haven't got a partner to leave it to, I haven't got any children to leave it to. I'll write a will when I'm in a relationship or when,
It's
you know.
also about where you don't want it to go. If it takes that natural progression.
You don't think of that,
No,
do you?
no.
Not always, no.
So tell us this story. It was a gentleman who wasn't married.
He wasn't married, he'd got no children, he was successful in his own career, so he had a reasonable amount of wealth as well, but he was only, as I remember it, in his 40s, so, and he died unexpectedly and suddenly. The backstory which is why this stuck with me, is that it transpired that his father, when he was born, left the family, so Mum was left to bring up 2 sons, and the father had nothing to do with them. So we don't know the reason for that. I'm sure he had his reasons, but he made the decision not to be part of the family unit. So Mum's brought up the 2 boys. The boys have had nothing to do with the father at all, no contact from the father the other way, so not even birthday cards. So they're not in each other's life, and that's been the same for decades. And then, of course, unfortunately, he died suddenly. Questions asked, did he have a will? The answer was no. So he's got the government will, so he's died intestate. The first question that's asked of the person that's passed away is, are you married in a civil partnership? And unfortunately, well, no, unfortunately, he never got married. So the next question then, the answer is no. So where does that take you? The next question is, did he have children? He never had children. So again, the answer is no. So the next question is, do you have parents? The answer, of course, was yes. So the conclusion the government will makes is, right, legally now your parents share in your estate equally. So his mum, who's already got the devastation of losing a son, has now got to track down her ex-husband, who walked out on him decades ago, to tell him that he's entitled to half of that estate.
Oh, how awful
Oh,
would
he'd
that
be
be?
devastated, wouldn't he?
Everyone that hears that story is appalled
It's
and
not
says,
right.
well, surely that's what you hear is it's not right. And this is why we do these shows, because whilst that might seem like an extreme case, unfortunately it isn't. And we'll never know why that gentleman didn't make a will, because we can't ask him now.
No.
But I think most betting people would say, if we could ask him, or when you passed away, would you want your dad, who you never met, to get half of everything? I think we can guess his answer would be no.
Yeah.
But the only way to stop that from happening, and the only way, there is no other way, the only way for your last act on planet Earth to be yours is to make your own will. And in doing so, you're doing 2 things. You're doing something brilliant for your family because it's your will, but that means that you are getting rid of the government will. It's your act. Then.
You're
It's
in
your gift to your
control.
it's your last gift to your family, yeah.
And that government will doesn't work for anybody, whether you're a single person, whether you're living with somebody and you've been with them for donkey's years, whether you're married with your own children, whether you're married and you've got children from different relationships because you're on your 2nd or your 3rd marriage. That government will, it just doesn't work for anybody.
But even if you're married on the government will, and this is what shocks people, is you can almost, when you've got a little bit of knowledge, understand that if you're not married, okay, there might not be provision. You're shocked to find out there's no provision at all between unmarried partners. But even married couples aren't guaranteed to inherit everything from each other.
No.
So there's a limit, isn't
There are limits there,
monetary?
and then there becomes a convoluted calculation. If you've got children, that part of your estate then has to go to your children. And again, if you've got children from different relationships, this can mean that the widow then ends up losing the family home, and it gets really complicated really quickly. And I'm not bigging Charlotte up, because that's the last thing I would do.
We would never do
We
that.
left it right till the end.
But if you speak to someone like Charlotte, or better still, one of her colleagues,
It's getting brave.
in all seriousness,
Don't worry.
in all
We'll get it.
seriousness, whatever you think is or isn't a problem, we'll be able to talk you through, and Charlotte will hold your hand through the whole process. And all these things, you know, well, I want to make sure my wife inherits everything. Guess what? Charlotte can do that for you.
Do it,
Yeah.
I want to make sure my husband, Charlotte, can do that for you. And then the question is, what do you want to happen when you're both no longer here? Well, then I'd want this to go to charity. I'd want my jewellery to go there.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a case recently where daughters have fallen out, and we were asked if we could intervene, and we can't really. But daughters have fallen out because they're fighting over jewellery.
It could have been written down.
And everyone's saying, but Mom said that this, and so even things that might seem quite insignificant, when emotions are high, one of the biggest reasons for family breakdowns is a bereavement, and that's compounded often when there isn't a plan in place. But I think you can say that quite often when jewellery is being left, sometimes a mother will say, well, I want my wedding ring to go to this daughter, I want my engagement ring to go to this daughter, and I want my eternity ring. You know, specify that.
It's
And
always
again,
wishes.
then
Takes all that away, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it's selfless, but you also know that your wish is going to be carried out because it's
Yeah.
documented in a legally binding document.
And it might be that you don't want certain people to have things as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just about where it goes. It's about where it doesn't go. You can put exclusions in there. Could be estranged from a child or a sibling or a parent even, as the story was earlier. So
Some parents are a little bit embarrassed to acknowledge that they might have had a breakdown in a relationship with their children. They sort of, and that sometimes that might even put them off even contacting us. But whilst this is nothing nice, genuinely you're not on your own. There's, you know, blood is not thicker than water, and this is your will. You know, and if there has been a breakdown in a relationship and it's so much that you either don't want them to benefit at all, or maybe you only want them to benefit a tiny amount as opposed to the other side. You can do all of that because it's your will.
And you said about age as well, which I hadn't thought about. What age do children inherit?
This is a really big one because legally children inherit at 18, but a lot of
so young at 18.
Yeah, we've all been 18. Imagine getting a lot of inheritance.
I was really, really responsible.
I bet you were.
Mature,
responsible. Honestly, and
it's still that.
And let me tell you now, I was a stunner.
Oh, I bet.
A mullet, acne, this nose and 3 chins.
Gorgeous.
Amazing.
With lots of inheritance.
If I'd have come into any kind of money or responsibility at 18, I can look back now and know that I'd have probably had a brilliant time. Briefly.
Yeah, it's a lot to put on an 18-year-old.
It's a lot of pressure.
So you can say they can get it at 20 or 21 or get a certain amount.
You can split it, and a lot of clients actually go to 21, 23, more so than actually 18 because it's just that extra few years. They've gone probably through university. They want to use it for a house deposit.
Early 20s is when
like that.
People start
leveling out.
A little bit, or you might start your career proper at that time, or you just, even though it's only 5 years, there's a lot of maturity.
It's a big difference.
But again, this is your choice. I mean, there are some clients as well who say, "Oh, our Julie, her head's screwed on fine, she'd be absolutely fine," and then they go, "Our John, can you make it 50?"
Yeah.
And obviously there's a joke in there, but again,
it's the choice, isn't it?
But
you know your
how good is that? Because they know, deep down they know that. Oh, if God
and I
forbid
think a lot of people wouldn't even think about this unless they sat down and spoke
and talked
to you.
about it. Yeah.
And it might not be children. It might be your dog, and perhaps you want your dog to go to a charity, and then you want your money to go to that charity so they look after your dog. It's absolutely unique to you for whatever is loved in your life, and you make sure that it goes where and to who you want it to go to. Check out the prices. Get your phone out right now. Take a photograph of this. There's all your prices. You've got the will there, massive savings. And when you look at the split of cost, I bet you spend more on coffee, takeaways, and you've done your will or your lasting power of attorney. The best deal there is the will and lasting power of attorney. But if you just make sure you tonight secure these deals, then whatever option you want to go for, I know the team will sort you out when they get back to you. So you can either go onto the website.
Really easy to get in touch. We'll show you all the different ways. The team is still there for the next few minutes, but simplerlaw.co.uk/shop on TV takes you directly to Simpler Law's website. You can go to the call centre, as I say, in the next few minutes. The team will be there, 0333 600 2600. You don't need any documents with you. You're just securing the offer right now. But the easiest way and the busiest way on these evening shows is texting, isn't it?
Yeah, just text that word will before you go to bed right now, 66777. The team will get back to sort out a time that's right for you, even if it's later on in February. What you've done is secured those prices. And if you're lucky enough for them to be one of the first 250 people, you'll also get that fabulous book that talks you, gives you peace of mind that you actually have written down everything that's important. If you do pass, all that vital information, it's in this book. Worth £25. It's what your family should know. All about your assets, but also passwords and things like that. Don't forget you can go via our website as well, which is great. Just scroll down and you'll find that Simpler Law is right there. So if you do think you've forgotten everything, just go onto our website and again, fill in those details. But do it now. The deal is only till tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, close of business Friday.
But you'll forget if you don't do it now. You got too much going on today, and then tomorrow.
I love
what
Ian says. Life gets in the way, and it does, doesn't it? All those things get in the way. You're taking that first step to write a will. It's that gift for you. It's that gift for your family.
Don't be looking down, watching the family fall out, because they know what you wanted to happen, but it's not happening because the government will has fallen in place because you never got round to writing your own will. It's that peace of mind that everything that you want to happen is going to happen because it's all written down legally. It's the only way to do it, honestly.
Take control.
Take control. That's perfect. And it's your wishes, like you've said throughout the show.
It's your document.
Yeah.
Your last act on planet Earth should be yours.
Yeah.
Your final gift to your family.
Absolutely is, and it's not difficult and it's not expensive, and I promise you, it's not remotely morbid.
No.
It's quite a cathartic experience, and it is genuinely selfless. And we know from the hundreds of thousands of clients that we've spoken to that the consultation always ends with, I'm glad I've done that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, thank you, and we're like, you're welcome,
Yeah.
because you've done something amazing.
Yeah.
And read the Trustpilot reviews if you want to know more about Simpler Law. They are phenomenal. And don't really mention Simpler Law as such. It's actually the people that they deal with, the person like Charlotte that's been with us tonight that they talk to, that just make it so easy. And you've got the peace of mind it's been done, and it's been done right as well.
Got to say a huge thank you to Ian and Charlotte for joining us as always.
Thank you.
Real pleasure to have you here with us. And thank you to you for watching. But take that first step. Get started.
Yeah, and do it now, because you will forget, won't you? We forget time and time.
Text.
And time, yeah. Do that text. It's text will. WILL.
Yeah.
I can even spell it.
66777.
There we go. And that's the simplest way. Get to bed, and they'll get back to you tomorrow to sort out a day that's right to discuss getting what you want to happen.
We'll see you very soon.
See you later.